What's happening, y'all? It's another Wednesday. Welcome back to the Vertex Podcast. I know that we had taken quite a bit of a break. We haven't had a podcast episode since before Thanksgiving, which is just kind of insane. You know, we're known for consistency, and here we go taking almost 3 weeks off. You know, it's towards the end of the year, and I'm sure a lot of us have had full years, full of good and bad and ugly. And, sometimes you got to just take that moment to unwind. Today we're going to be interviewing Mr. Brendan Roarty, or better known as Dogma Quest. He is the mastermind behind the game Bunny Hill, the game AirStar, and the upcoming game Cavern, all of which, I mean, first off, they're just three of many games that he has made over his years of being a game developer, but they're all unique and fun and colorful and quirky and just a good time. If you have not checked them out, I definitely recommend you do. I'm excited and honored to have him on today, and I hope that you guys, get to enjoy him as well. So let's get on in here and let's get things going. I'm not gonna hold y'all up too long. I know y'all not here for me. Y'all here for him. So let's do it. What's up, man?
What's up?
How do?
Good. You?
Pretty good, man. I'm like kind of beat, not gonna lie.
Oh
I've
yeah, yeah.
had a
One of those
long,
days.
yeah, it's been one of them weeks. I don't know if I told you I
Hear
was
ya.
working on a comic. Did I tell you that?
No,
I was
no.
I've been working on a comic the past couple of weeks. There's a comics fair out in LA I'm going to, and I just
Awesome.
wanted to have something to pull up out there with, and I just finished it like this morning, and I'm like, oh, finished.
Yeah, yeah. What's it
Mhm.
about? What's the gist?
So the gist is it's a fantasy, so it's got like those similar types of like class systems and tropes, but
Yeah.
it's about a
Okay.
rogue who she goes to a witch needing a particular thing, and the witch is
Right.
like, nah, I'm not doing that because you already owe me a bunch of other stuff. And she's like, please, like, I'll do anything. Like, you're the only one that can do what I need. And she's like, well, if you can do this for me, then I'll take care of you and clear your debt. I need you to go and retrieve a weapon that was stolen from me by a group of creatures. And
Okay.
and so she's like, okay, fine, I'll go out and get it. And so a bunch of stuff happens to her along the way. And yeah, that's the story. It's a short
Gotcha.
comic.
Sweet. It's
Hmm.
cool. Sounds cool.
Yeah, man, it's been pretty tight. Um, but yeah, what's front of mind for you?
Man, I mean, I was just working on my game, and
Hmm.
I've been considering going to PAX and getting like an exhibitor booth for
Hmm.
like their gaming convention. So I've been kind of trying to manage the logistics of that. But
Hmm.
um, yeah,
So
just
when
game
is
work.
PAX?
It's in like March, like late March. Yeah.
Hmm. I've been watching a couple of documentaries. Like I watched Indie Game the movie like a couple days
Okay. Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
I think it was Pixels and Polygons. I think I watched that, and it was like another one about like Edmund McMillan, and they were talking about PAX. Like that was the joint. Like that's the spot if you're gonna go like for indie devs. And like
That's
I'm
good.
not hip to PAX. What can you kind of explain what it is or why it's so important?
Honestly, I'm not super hip either, but I've heard similar things to you. I've heard like, okay, it's one of the biggest gaming sort of conventions for like new tech and game studios like showcasing things, and they have like game tournaments and stuff. So, um, I just yeah, I heard about it recently. I was like, oh, it's coming up. I'll try it out.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, yeah, I'm like equally in terms of like I guess I'm equally unaware in terms of like exploring the process of marketing and things like that. So I'm just kind of throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And it seems like a cool opportunity. So if I could swing it, I'd love to do it. But Also just to like meet people too. Like I'm sure you're going to the comic fair. It's like that's like an awesome place to meet really cool artists and just share like inspiration and work and yeah. So
Yeah, when it comes to marketing, I find that like the in-person connections always stick like a lot harder than if something pops off on TikTok or Instagram or something because they kind of they kind of stick to the content, but then when
Mhm.
they like in real life, they actually check you out. Like they're like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
they got to meet you first and then they learn about what it is you got going on. And I don't know, it just seems like that kind of it's a slower burn or like a slower climb, but like it's way more stable and like
yeah,
real,
yeah.
if that makes
I,
sense.
I would I would agree with you 100%. Yeah, I
Hmm.
think you're right. Yeah. Um, of all the places I've gone, it's like even like locally, I got to test Cavern at like a small indie like kind of meetup.
Mhm.
And it was just awesome. It was like, oh, people making games. I'm gonna remember these people. I'm gonna like message them, ask how they're doing, or I'm in their Discord so I can check up on them. But it's yeah, way more like of a core memory even for me. It's like, you know, who knows if it was good marketing for like my game to them. That's not the important part, but like yeah, it's like everyone there kind of like shares the idea, which is cool.
It makes me wonder like what kind of like what is truly valuable or like to what really gets people to stick around or what really gets people to support. Because I know you can do stuff by way of like making something just very visually engaging, like making a really cool
Yeah,
trailer or like a really nice cover art, splash image or something, and that can get people like riled up. But then, there's like the conversation of context and like maybe the story. Maybe it's like the trailer isn't so crazy, but like the they learned about like what you had to go through to make it happen and they're like, "Oh, I'm
right.
definitely there for it." And it's been
Yeah,
something that's so interesting. Like how do you put all of that together or like how do you kind of use all of those different avenues? I feel like you need them all to really push it to like the top level of like mainstream or like, really getting it out there to people.
yeah, it's interesting. I feel like I mean one thing that popped into my head when you were saying that was like it would be really cool if like certain game studios had like open door policies or like even just like a lobby where you can go like play their games or like sort of a social space to like either for people to experience their product in like first hand. It's almost like I don't know, it's almost like a storefront for like like Apple has like a the apps the store where you can try the phone and stuff. But yeah, I mean it'd be cool to it's yeah, it's kind of sad that we don't have like a real, I guess that's what PAX is, but yeah, we don't have like that too often, for like games and like even just like art and media. Even like a gallery is like much different. It's like don't talk to anybody. Like, uh,
It's very sterile. Like
yeah,
the pieces themselves are often the most vibrant thing there. And you'll have people kind of talking, but I don't know, it just feels like for artists to be so expressive and free, the gallery itself seems very like restricted and like, you know, just what is that word? Like solid or like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
stubborn or
It's not
I'm trying to
as
find the
open.
word.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It's very like it follows a strict rule set or protocol and to kind of like, oh, don't touch the artwork or like, you can't stand too close or like
yeah,
don't be too
yeah,
loud. And you're like, dog, I thought we was creatives in here. I thought we was expressing ourselves.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Well, shoot, man, I'm super excited to have you on for a conversation today. I've been telling people all about it. And I have so many questions. It's
Well, I'm excited to be here.
yeah, man. Well, for one, I want to just know, I think for me and for listeners and viewers, um in order to better understand and appreciate what you do, we would like to know like who you are, where you come from. And I'd want to know how would you describe your relationship and history with your craft?
As for who I am, my name's Brendan. I go by Dogma Quest online. I develop video games. I've released a few on Steam. That's kind of the short and sweet. Um, I like, you know, games as a medium. I've traditionally done more so illustration and things like that, and so now I'm diving into more 3D modeling and more music and more interactive stuff and coding. But the personal story goes something like my dad's an engineer, and I saw him like draw Santa Claus one time, and I thought it was like crazy that he could make this thing appear on the page out of some like simple steps. It was like a kind of crude funny drawing of Santa Claus. um, and I was like, oh, maybe like that really inspired me. So I feel like ever since then I've just kind of been trying to see what I can create based on media that I like. So, when I grew up, it was like I'm copying Pokemon and I'm trying to draw them, and I'm trying to, make up my own. And it eventually became, oh, maybe I can go to school for this. Maybe I can try to do this professionally.
And so your dad, I mean, you said that your dad drew the Santa Claus, but was it something where like, is he an artist as well, or was it just kind of like I'm just doing this, like just doodling, making something fun?
Yeah, I think that was it too. It's just a doodle. It was like he is very like he's very like logically minded. He's kind of like he's kind of like a numbers dude. He's like an engineer, like math, science,
Hmm.
all of which are really cool stuff. Which is, I think, why I like the coding aspect of things. It's like those everything's related, right? So I think like learning anything is like thumbs up. But yeah, it was just like a passing thing. It was just like nothing. Maybe that was part of the allure. It was like it was just like, oh, this is like a nothing doodle to me, but it was still really cool to me. So it was like, oh, you can actually do that. Like that's a skill you can have. That's like a thing you can know. And I feel like, yeah, it just like in terms of my family, my grandma did like paintings and stuff, and that was pretty cool. But like, and my uncle, he's pretty cool. He does paintings as well. But like, few kind of like artists in the family, but no one really like super commercial, super like professional. Um, but yeah. Yeah.
Mm. And I have a similar situation where like when it comes to having family members that were like creative,
Mhm.
um like my grandmother was a seamstress. She would like sew
Oh,
and do like alterations and stuff, and she did it at a pretty large scale. She was doing it for like movies and stuff, and
oh, that's awesome.
yeah, she was the truth. Like I wasn't really into sewing like that, but just if you talk to her clients or to people, they're like, "No, she's like Yoda. She's like that one." And there were so many things that I learned just indirectly that I didn't even realize I was learning when I was watching her. Like I was I was watching her as a little boy, like pull all-nighters to like get projects done on time, or like
Yeah.
even whenever it comes to just like the hack and slash of like trying to get to a particular outcome, and you're not really sure how to get there creatively, and like you have a goal and you have where you are and you're not really sure what the middle looks like, but you're trying to like figure it out. And like being able to watch her do that was something that like I can still pull to today for like
Mm.
inspiration. And um my next question for that would be like, were there any sort of values or teachings or just observations that you think still kind of whisper in your ear when you're making stuff today that you learned from your family?
It's a tough question. It's a good question.
No, all good. All good. Take your
I
time.
think like I think for my immediate family, it was always kind of like a very there was always like a strong reasoning to things. So it was like, like more so like a work ethic thing. Like if you're gonna do something, do it right and do it to the best of your ability, and plan it out and try to make it happen. Um, and you may fail along the way, but you as long as you're sort of moving towards that goal and you're working hard, you can accomplish it. So I think that's really stuck with me, especially with like the indie game stuff. It's just like, you know, it, it can take years and it's like a slog. Or just being a professional artist in general, it's like it could be very challenging. And so like sticking with yourself there, I think, is really like something like confidence wise and like something I struggle with. But that's kind of in the back of my head, something I can look to. I can say, like, there's support, and ultimately if you have the self-confidence, you can push yourself to do what you want to do. Um, yeah, and then I feel like in terms of like my other family members who are like art more creative or artistically oriented, I guess, creative in like a visual sense. It's hard to put into words maybe, but like what I've taken away from that or those relationships is kind of the I feel like there was always kind of some like subtle or like unspoken appreciation for the craft, and like just for trying it or just for like wanting to do it. And I think that's something like a lot of artists share is like we don't it can be hard to pin down why you do it, but like you feel this drive. And I think like when you see somebody with the drive who's like going for it, you say, man, that's cool. Like I really like I want people to do this stuff. I want people to find value in it because I believe it's valuable. I want to be able to tell myself that there's value. And so when I do it, I can feel, fulfilled. Um, and I think there's just kind of that like little unspoken kind of connection there with a couple of family members that I think helps a lot.
So is it more so, if I understand it correctly, it's whenever you're like when they can kind of see you hard at work at something and see like, oh, he something's got him, and I'm just gonna try to like add fuel to his flame just out of like honoring that ambition and that drive. Like,
Yeah,
mhm.
yeah, I'd say that's a good way to put it. And also, like to add to that, maybe like something more, even more along the lines of like art specifically. So how do I phrase this? Like I feel like I had I don't know, I had a good support in my family and stuff like that growing up. So it was always kind of like a yeah, I'll add fuel to your fire so you can accomplish the thing. And but then with like the artistic stuff specifically, I feel like I've always had the question in the back of my mind, and like even I feel like society has the question like, why does it matter? Like it obviously matters a great deal. Um, that's why it's kept in history, and that's why it's in museums and stuff like that, and that's why it moves people. And I could make the argument all day, but like when it comes to your family, it's like, and growing up, at least for me, it was a little difficult to find my purpose in that and find it like validated. And so having that like sort of subtle, like my uncle who does paintings giving me a pat on the back and saying like, hey man, like I see your stuff, like keep working hard on it. That's like a little nudge in the right direction, I think. um,
And how do you think how important do you think that those pieces of like encouragement and validation were versus like I've heard people who like they were like, yo, I'd stop drawing my for the rest of
yeah,
my childhood because like I got roasted in second
yeah,
grade for whatever, you know. Um, are you one that or maybe as a kid, if you can remember, do you think that you would have been one to like kind of push back against those types of things or like were you headstrong anyway? Like, even if you hadn't gotten it, you would have been pushing through, or like, was that kind of stuff key, or like, you're like, okay,
yeah.
like, yeah,
I think that's a good question. I think like personally, I think I was kind of just so zoned in on it that I didn't like, it was kind of my like anytime I had any free time, I was doing like something with a pencil and a piece of paper. And it would be like, oh, we're at a restaurant, like me and my siblings are drawing before we get our meal or something like that, which is cool. So it was always kind of like a backdrop for me, and so I don't think like I had too much pushback at all in terms of like actually doing it, or no one really ever was like, hey man, this is ugly or something like that, at least like in that when I was growing up. And so um I feel like those like the validation and the little sort of nods, um those definitely help when it comes to like finding like your identity maybe and your like purpose as a person, because it's like, oh, I go to school, I figure out what I like, I go find a job doing that. And so as you're growing up, even in high school, it's like I'm young, I have no clue what I'm like gonna aim towards, and somebody gives you a pat on the back for something, and you start thinking, oh, maybe I'm okay at it. Maybe I'll pursue it. And so I think I do think those are things that are like they helped me see the value, or even like yeah, they helped me see the value in the thing that I actually liked, and like they help me be sort of confident enough to like give myself a chance and go after it. Um, and I think that is important because like I think you know, you say like, oh, people stop drawing because they like, you know, someone's rude to them or like they get shit on for a drawing or something. It's like that's a I don't know, that's like a total bummer to me. And people are more like useful, quote unquote, and better at what they do when they're passionate about it. And so like I think it's just like in an ideal world, you know, it's like people are doing things that they love and that's what produces the best outcome. But
Mhm.
yeah.
And then and you bringing up, like, being able to draw on the paper at the restaurant, it's so that just brought that whole wave of, like, nostalgia back for me of, like, man, the days when, like, drawing was all there was to do, and
Yeah.
it's like you're putting in those reps
Mhm.
artistically, like, um, sometimes I genuinely, like my heart goes out to people who start art in their adult years because, like, as a kid, you can get all of them rough drawings out and people are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's cute," or, "Oh, he's going," or if you're, like, 26 and you're drawing stuff and it's coming out, not ideal, people are rough, man, but,
Yeah. They're
um
ruthless, ruthless.
yeah, but it's really nice that, that childlike freedom of being able to just, like, draw whatever you want and however you want to. Like, I used to think of drawing as, like, the way to, like, further connect with something that I wanted. So, like, if
Mm.
there was a show, like, if I'm watching SpongeBob on TV and, like, the only way, back then you can't just watch SpongeBob whenever. Like SpongeBob came on at
Right.
5 and it was off at 6 and that's it. And it's like, dang, it's 8 o'clock. What am I supposed to do now? And
Yeah.
yeah, and so I'm drawing SpongeBob because that was the way to connect to him. Or like sometimes I would literally take the drawing to bed. Like I'd have the freaking piece of paper and like be rolling over them in my sleep and stuff. And like it's just crazy to think just the way that we were just so free with it. And it didn't have to be
Yeah.
so like some kind of plan or like this is what I'm
Yeah.
going to do, this is how I'm going to do it. I think a lot of times that's like the secret sauce sometimes, because even now, if you can apply that same sort of freedom to your practice, like it takes you to some crazy heights, you know? Like,
Agreed.
you ever
Agreed.
trace the TV? You ever pause the TV and trace it?
No, I don't. I don't. Yeah, no. I would go on I would go on like the home computer, like the big old, and I'd type in, you know, Pokemon, and I'd print them out, and then I would draw them from like
Mhm.
printouts. But no, pausing the TV, that's a hack. That's a
It
good one.
it didn't
It's like a
work.
light box.
It didn't work because back then, the TV used to be round, so, like, you couldn't even
Curve,
really
yeah.
get it on there flush, and I'm sitting here it was bad because then you ain't
That's
even got
funny.
high definition either, so, like, stuff is all fuzzy because 'cause you're close, and it was it was a whole thing.
That's funny.
Ah, but that's cool. So, I remember, um, watching a video of your game creation history. What turned you from
I
art
agree.
into game dev? And I'm
Yeah.
curious if like well, no, I'll let you explain. I'd rather you.
From what I can remember, my so I had a cousin, and he I was going into high school, and he was a couple years older than me at the same high school,
Mhm,
and he ended up getting the chance to do this like kind of summer camp kind of thing about game creation. So I guess one of the high school teachers was kind of into it and set up this like summer camp, which is cool. But it was in Game Maker. It was all like the visual kind of scripting stuff, like if this, then this, and all with the sort of blocks. And then yeah, he came back and we hung out and he showed me and I was like, man, this is like cool. I can see stuff moving. I can see stuff um, like animating. I can, you know, fire a bullet. I can do whatever. And so that was really cool for me. And once I got the opportunity in high school, I started getting into Game Maker. So yeah, it was kind of, it was light at first. It was just kind of like, oh, I'm going to mess around with this. I'm going to watch a couple tutorials, a bunch of the YouTube people that I watched back in the day. I still like enjoy their content. But yeah, it was a lot of like me just aimlessly watching a tutorial and just having fun with it. Kind of the same thing with like growing up drawing, it's just like doing whatever, just because I had the time. So, um,
When when was this? Like what year?
like 2013, 2014.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I graduated high school in 2017. So yeah, it would have been kind of early high school. I was fortunate enough to like I got like a laptop going into high school, like a $200 like Toshiba laptop, and I was with my I I started working in high school too when I was like 15. I was like a stock boy at a pharmacy, cooler and vacuuming and stuff like that. Take out the garbage, and
Mhm.
with my first paycheck, I bought a Wacom tablet. So it was kind of like all at the same time. Once I got into high school, like a lot of my interests sort of started to flourish, and it was like, oh, I'm watching YouTube videos of there's this guy named Trent Kanuga, I think he's like a concept artist, and he would do like Hearthstone cards and Blizzard art and stuff. And so I was like, oh, I really like his stuff. So I was like, I'll buy a drawing tablet and get Sketchbook Pro, and then my cousin introduced me to Game Maker, so it was just kind of like off to the races. I was just kind of like putting out the feelers for all sorts of digital art, which I hadn't really touched before. I would I did do like pixel art growing up in like middle school. I was super into, or like junior high, I guess. I was super into Terraria, so I would do like pixel art of Terraria characters and stuff in MS Paint. But yeah, just more digital art, more tech.
Man, back then, them Wacoms didn't even have no screen. It was just a big. It was like looking like this.
Hey, yeah, there we go. Well, this is
There it
actually the
is.
one I bought. This was like $60.
I
It's like
remember
a
being
2013 version.
I remember being so disappointed. I thought that was a screen. I remember I got
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I don't know why I thought that, but I remember asking my dad if he could help me out. I think we like split it. I was like, if I could get half, could you pay the other half? He's like, yeah.
yeah.
And then
Heck yeah.
we got it, and I'm at school like waiting, I'm because it was supposed to like be delivered. I'm like, man, I can't wait, blah blah. And I get there, and it's like I'm looking. I'm like, wait, it's dots. Wait a minute, where's the
Yeah,
screen? And I'm like, oh, this is just a trackpad. And I remember being so upset, but it was such a crazy learning curve because it's like I had never drawn and like the line
yeah,
wasn't right there, but it was like over on another screen and like that in itself was a whole. I was never able to get it together. I think I
yeah,
gave that to like my cousin. I ended up just saving up for like something else later, but
yeah,
that was
yeah.
that was crazy. Like, you know, folks folks don't even know like it wasn't as easy before.
I still use it all the time, which is funny because I just got used to it, and I guess I never quit, and I too cheap to buy like one with a screen. But I yeah, I mean like I'll use like one with the screen, or I'll get the chance to like draw traditionally, and sometimes I'll be like why is my hand in the way when I'm drawing? It's like no, your hand's supposed to be there.
Ah, that's funny, man. Those like digital it's like the things that we get used to as a digital. Like, you ever be trying to zoom into a page, like an
Yeah,
actual
yeah,
page, and I'm like, "What am I doing?" Like, I'm glad
yeah.
nobody
You're
saw
like,
this.
oh, that's funny.
But so I know how it feels to be to like get into art and like mess around with like shapes, colors, and lines. But this is something that I even now I'm still like trying to wrap my head around is like in terms of game development, how do you just mess around? Like I'm
Sure.
like maybe because each game that you make, I'm sure you consider those like projects, but in terms of
Yeah,
like how would you just sketch or doodle? What's the doodle equivalent?
it's a good question. I feel like the sort of like you know professional game design answer to that question is like something like prototyping, where it's like
Mhm,
fast, quick, sort of like complete projects, but they're minimum viable products. But
mhm,
like when I was younger, it was just like, oh, I have this cool idea for a project, and so it was I'm gonna make a roguelike with like a wizard as the character, and I'm just gonna come up with ideas and put them in the game. Like as I so there was like no design, there was no sort of coherence. It was just like random stuff that I thought of, and it was just random art that I was like, oh, this would be cool, and so I'll add it. And so I mean, I have like a huge backlog of like just half finished, like abandonware, like nothing projects, that are just like I learned something from them and I moved on, or I got bored of them. Probably more accurately, I got bored of them and moved on. So it was a lot of like, I I guess that was the cool part about like kind of what we're talking about, where it's like just messing around and doing something without worrying about the output or worrying about the timeline or production. It's just like, no, I'm just gonna like sit down and put pen to paper, and who cares what it is. And I feel like with the game stuff, it's like, yeah, it's at least when you're learning, it's like really relieving to say like, I'm not going to even like put this on anything. I don't even care if it's like fully playable. I'm just gonna like try to do something, and as soon as I stop enjoying it, I'm gonna like do it again. I think it's really important when you're starting out to like keep the exciting part going. And I think as a kid, it's like a no-brainer, right? It's like your kid brain is like hardwired to just like find fun stuff and like not do anything boring. And then when you become an adult, it's like, well, I have to do the boring stuff because I have to, pay my bills.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Yeah.
Mm. And what would I I have two questions that are like kind of fighting, but I guess my
Yeah,
first question would be, are there any concepts in there? Because if what you explained to me sounds like an old sketchbook full of like just stuff, half drawn, whatever. I just did a little quick sketch of something here, whatever. But sometimes you can go back through those and be like, I was actually kind of cooking. I was kind of onto something with this. And how often do you go back and kind of look at those and see things that are viable, or um,
sure.
when do you do that? And if you do, like, you know, um, are there any things now that you kind of see or like, I kind of want to see more about this, or like see how I can make this
Sure.
happen?
I feel like I don't really go through the backlog like too often.
Hmm.
Um, and I do feel like it is difficult to get what you're describing with games just because there's sort of like a lot of work to get to anything like playable or visual. It's like you can pick up a pen and create a sketch, and it's like, oh, maybe that it was super dynamic, and that's what you like about it, or it was like technically well executed, or the what you drew, like the subject matter was really unique and cool, but it was quick, right? It's like I do think it's much harder to do with games, um, and so typically when I look back on stuff, it is the most surprising part to me, or like the most the part I can take away from when I look back at old stuff is like how much I was able to get done in like sort of a technical sense. It's like, oh wow, I was as a as sort of a kid with no goal, I was actually able to make a lot, and so it's more of like a like a confidence booster, and also a like a oh hey, like if you have an idea, you can get after it, you can make it happen, you can make it reality. So I feel like I didn't have a lot of novel like game ideas. Most of them were kind of like rehashes of things that already exist. Sort of like me drawing Pokemon when I was growing up. It's like, I wasn't doing anything new really. um it's cool to see like the technical progression, like, oh, here I got a little bit better at this thing, or a little bit better at this thing, and those all add up. So
Hmm. Man, it
yeah,
it is. I see a lot of those parallels where it's like, you start off. I mean, like me, I'm tracing the TV. I'm
yeah,
drawing
yeah,
SpongeBob on the TV, or you're drawing Pokemon, and then that's just like to build the skill though. And then you
yeah,
kind of once you kind of have sharpened that blade, now you can go and like forge new territory, or like kind of see what you can come up with now that you have this skill built. And
yeah.
do you think that was it because of the tutorials and things online that you saw? Like, is that kind of how you got your understanding in terms of like code and like computer language? Cause like that, I'm not gonna lie, that's the hurdle for me. That's
Sure.
like that's the joint. Like that code is no joke.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
it's truly a whole nother language.
Like if I were to say like I have my game dev, you know, the time I've been doing game dev, it's like 75% of it I was writing like terrible, terrible code, which is funny because you can get stuff done with terrible code. So I feel like I only really started to like at, at least like be more serious about like studying programming and things like that sort of later into college. So like when I was sort of first starting out, it was more so just again throwing stuff at the wall and also um, just not really knowing where to look for stuff. I would follow tutorials, and so it was nice that I got like some baseline understanding. It was sort of like subliminally like cooking in the back of my head, but it wasn't really front of mind. I feel like I've always been more invested in the art side of things in terms of like the visuals,
Mhm.
and like I've had an interest in like music production as well. Like middle of high school, I kind of got into that as well. So the perfect game development storm. It's like trying to
Mhm.
learn everything at once. But that's definitely like I'm like terrible. Like I'm not, I'd like to say I improve, but I'm not that good at music production. And that's where it's like I think you need like 4 years of just like I mean, you can study something and be really, really good at it really quickly. It's just I think those like younger years and sort of just like sifting like almost like wading through the mud on like just creative ideas in any sort of thing. It helps to have that kind of like foundational, like, oh, I have a little experience making a song one time, even though it was terrible. I kind of understand this about it or something like that. So all those tutorials definitely like contributed to my like baseline understanding.
It's like
But
little just piece by piece sounds like just
yeah,
like a pebble every single day, and you look
yeah,
up and you got a
yeah,
hill after a couple years. A bunny
yeah,
hill.
yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Mm,
And
cool. Hmm? What's up?
yeah, I was gonna say too, like with the programming too, it was like I think it's hard to say, but like a lot of it is like very logical and very like black and white. So like the computer does exactly what you tell it to, right? Like nothing more. So it's like if it's doing something wrong, you told it to do that. And so I think through various, YouTube and things like that, and also just like talking to people, my brother, I would attribute like he did like philosophy in college, which is, like verbal logic and like sort of like logos and things like that. It's just like all of that has to make sense, like for it to be sound and for an argument to make sense. And so I feel like I attribute a lot of my like programming thought process to things like that, where it's like a very black and white view of things. And it's like, it's either there, or it's not. And, like just kind of that. I know that's kind of a silly explanation, but I do feel like I attribute a lot of it to that, those kind of conversations with friends or with family.
Yeah, and it kind of brings in a nice parallel because I know that like there's a when it comes to code, there's like a bunch of different ways to do the same things. It's really
Hmm.
like speaking. Like you can get a point across one kind of way or another kind of way. Some people it's more articulated and clean and clear, and others it's kind of just like messy or it's kind of straight to the
Yeah.
point. And I've found that like code is kind of the same way. And I used to think that like it was one way. There was, like, the right
Mm,
way,
mm.
and then everything else was like, "No," and so I'm sitting here trying to find these absolutes, but it is a lot more relieving as someone learning to be like, there's there are wrong ways to do it, but there's multiple right ways to do it as
Yeah.
well, and so you don't have to remember how somebody else did it. Like,
Yeah.
you can,
Yeah.
like you can figure out if you get enough of a base understanding of, like, the logic just in general. So,
Yeah.
um, that I think was really, really cool, and, like, it kinda just you reminded me of that with what you said earlier. If you were to, like do you think that you would still take that path in terms of how you learn to code today? Like, say, as a
Mhm.
hypothetical, say you knew tomorrow you'd forget everything you knew about code,
Mhm.
and you'd have to start over again. How would you go about doing it?
Yeah. Like I could write myself a plan maybe the
Right.
day before I forget. Okay. Yeah. I would say, hmm, it's a good that's a good question. It would be really tough. It's like I do think always starting from zero is really tough, but the way I typically like personally learn best is if I can set down solid definitions for things, I can understand how they start to connect, and then I can sort of go wild within the like if the sandbox is like, you know, you have a bucket and a shovel, it's like, you know, if I can define the shovel and its purpose and the bucket and its purpose and understand all about it, then I can really use those things, you know, in creative ways. I can use the bucket to, you know, move sand. I can use it to build castle, you know. And so I feel like I would probably set out to like write down the best definitions I could for stuff. And for programming, I'd probably try to find all the best like YouTube videos too, and like write down the names of them. But for programming, that list of definitions would be like code is instructions. It's like a list of instructions for a computer. Um, the like the way you write those instructions is you know, manipulate values, and you manipulate those values with functions, and functions are something that takes an input, transmutes it somehow, or does something with it and creates an output. And so it's like, you know, if I can think of I'm trying to think of a simple example, but it's like, you know, like I can have my health bar, and I can say, you know, my function to change the health bar might say, you know, add or subtract to this, and it might have a bunch of other stuff in there too that that I would want to do at the same time, um, and so I can include those. But yeah, it would be simple set of instructions. Think about it, sort of step by step, and then it would be changing values by some condition. Um, so yeah, I know that those are. I feel like I would probably do a bad job teaching myself how to program, honestly.
I
But
think it's just that just leans it's just how complex it is, you know, and I
yeah,
think that it's
yeah,
part of like, it's a simple thing, but it's not at the same time, and, you know, it's just a lot that especially because you're so experienced at it, you're seeing all the nuance and all the
yeah,
detail and all just the droves of info that you have, and so you're you know, you're trying to quickly condense it down, and it's like it's so much. It's like it's like trying
yeah,
to stop a fire hose after the fact, you know? It's like, nah, it's too much going
yeah,
on. But I do like that like that outlook of seeing things as like kind of defining the things and then you can see how they influence each other and then you can start to like mess around with that. You know, like that's a really good analogy. Like that helped even that explanation kind of helped me understand it a little bit more. When I'm like, oh, okay, like that makes sense. And when it came to you like making games, you know, so you're in high school, you're making these games. What what were you kinda set on having a career in game development afterwards, or was it like, "This is just something fun I'm doing in high school," or
yeah.
what?
In high school, at that point, it was just something fun. It was just like completely, you know, I'm just doing it in my free time. Um,
What
I
did you wanna
still,
do?
well, so I wanted to be an illustrator,
Mhm,
or like a concept artist, because I had watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and I was like, oh, that's a career path. I could do that. Which
mhm,
is why, you know, I bought the drawing tablet, and I'm doing digital art and stuff. So I was always kind of like, and everyone, I don't know, that's another part of it. Like people in my family were like, "Oh, he's an artist." You know, they're already like labeling you as like a, "Oh, you have any sort of talent with something." People are like, "Oh, you know, you're the football star, or you're the artist, or you're good at math or writing or whatever." And so that was kind of there for me too. It was like I always thought I would kind of just go into something doing art, but it wasn't ever related to games until um, sort of college when I got more into it. Um, but yeah.
mhm. Was there a particular instance or project or person that kinda helped you lock that down or kinda push you over the edge of that fence?
Mm. I do well, okay, let me also say I think the like the concept art thing was kind of geared towards games, but it was more so like visual illustration, like ideas, kind of sketching, things like that. It wasn't necessarily like any of the programming or anything like that. So that was kind of still just for fun. And then the thing that kind of pushed me over the edge, I would say, would be I did get the opportunity to go to art school for college. So that was like a total blessing. But I feel like it was like the people I met there. Um, it was, you know, a series of teachers I had who were like really passionate about that. And then it was also just like, I think, you know, watching certain, um, like I would always follow people on Instagram that had like really cool illustrations and things like that. And so I was very much so in that world as well. But when I was on YouTube, it was always, you know, game development, game development. So it was kind of being pushed at me from that perspective. And I think that's kind of what brought me over the edge was I was like watching I'm sure a lot of people watch this YouTuber, but he goes by Danny. Um, and he's a game developer, uh Dani. And so he's it's more so like his videos are very like sort of entertainment more so than game development even, but it's like it was so lighthearted and kind of fun at the point where I was like, oh, like if this guy can do it, you know, maybe I can. And I think that's kind of the message of his videos is like keep it lighthearted, keep it fun, you know, keep it entertaining. And so that was kind of one of the things that pushed me to make my first like commercial game and really start like taking it seriously. I was like, oh, I'll try to release a game on Steam, see how it goes. But another sort of one more thing to add to that would be in college, there were like a bunch of majors, uh, and it was like, you know, transportation design or illustration or animation or game art. And there was no real like concept art major at the time at the school I went to. I went to this college for creative studies in Detroit, Michigan. Um, and I'm born and raised in Michigan, but there was no concept art major. So it was either illustration or game art, really, that I kind of wanted to go to. And so illustration was really cool because it was a lot of, you know, like fundamentals and foundational stuff, light and shadow, all the good stuff. But then game art was just like, you know, I see the student work on the wall and they're making concepts for cool characters and, you know, doing all sorts of like uh, sort of ideation and more like that kind of thing. And, you know, it turned out that that major was more so like mostly 3D modeling because that's like a lot of game art jobs. Yeah, that was kind of that kind of got me started on the game art path. It was like I picked game art for my major without really understanding like the full depth of what it was, and then I happened to kind of by happy accident gain a bunch of skills that I actually still use. Like I still 3D model all the time. I still, you know, I did some illustration classes, so I still got to do a bunch of the stuff I like. But yeah,
Mm. And did you feel Um, because there's like a part of art school. Like I went to art school. I didn't have the best time, but there was a
sure.
part of it that it felt like there's not a it felt like I fell in between two extremes with art school. Because like with art school, at least in the concepting or like illustration, drawing,
Hmm.
painting kind of scene, you either have like technique based things like people are doing still lives and like gestures
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And that's all fine and dandy. Or you've got like the people who are doing game art and they're going like hard in the paint. They're doing like Call of Duty or like World of Warcraft and all like these crazy like 32-piece armor sets and all that. And like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to go that hard with it. I'm trying to
Yeah.
like I want to do like some cool silly stuff and like I don't want to draw like fruit or like naked people, but I
Right.
also don't want to do, you know, all of that. I don't
Yeah.
want to do like a
Yeah.
whole castle or something. So
Yeah.
did you kind of find yourself in that place as well?
Yeah, I feel like I mean, I definitely didn't have like a ton of direction in terms of like that. I think it definitely took me like art school and years after to kind of like find my groove. But
Mhm.
I definitely get what you're saying. Like it does feel like the first half is like this isn't what I want to be doing, but maybe it's necessary fundamentals to some degree. And then, you know, when you actually start like doing what you want to do, it's like, oh, it's kind of different than what I expected. And like finding your own style and like niche within that is like incredibly challenging. And also it's going to go like it's most likely going to go against something at the school, you know, like it is a structured experience and you're having like a creative sort of you have a creative aim, which is like discover yourself and find like a unique way to express yourself. And so I feel like um I do feel like I like the I do like the foundational stuff. Like I do like still lifes and stuff like that. Like I don't do them now, like every day, so I don't really like them, I suppose. But I like them enough to like do them, and I think that was like, um, yeah, that was a positive experience. But then I definitely found myself with the game art stuff. Like I really don't enjoy 3D modeling in the sense that it was presented to me at school. And I think I could maybe draw like a parallel when you're saying like, you know, the guy with the 32-piece armor set versus like a well-designed, simple character with some character. And like that to me was like people are doing like a realistic 3D model of a human skull. And it's like, I want to make like things that move around on the computer screen, and are 3D, and they just like happen to be 3D. And so it's like, like nowadays it's like I get there however I can. I do not not that like school didn't inform me at all, but I don't do any of the practices that school taught me because they're sort of for a different workflow. And that workflow is, I think, pushed because it's more of a commercially like accepted thing. It's like if you want to work on Call of Duty or World of Warcraft, that's what you do. But if you want to make indie games, you got to find time saves and you got to like make it simpler and you got to like find your style and it's got to be unique and fresh and like ideally, doable, by one person. So yeah, I think there's some parallels there for sure.
And how do you go about designing for like with utility in mind? So like when you're making a character, say you got a game. I know it
Mhm.
depends on like what the game is and what you're going to be doing, but I guess in terms of like there's got to be a degree of recognizability. I don't know if that's a word, but recognizability of the
Yeah.
character. There's like
Mm,
to have the sort of making sure he has all the body parts to do what he needs to do, like if he's running, giving him like shoes, or if he's going to be punching
right.
or whatever. But then you also want it to be something where you're not like you don't want to over design him, but you don't want to
Right.
under design him, but you also want to make him kind of like fun looking and engaging. But then, when it's simple like that, you kind of gotta you can only work with so much. And so there's a
Yeah.
lot of I know that's kind of like the game of design and in general, but what's your approach to creating characters uh for video games? I remember watching a Cavern dev log, and you had this lineup. I'm a sucker for character lineups,
Yeah.
especially if I can like identify classes. I'm like, this one's got a bow, this one's got a hammer, a shield. Like I don't
Yeah.
know, there's something visceral in that for me. I don't know what it does to me, but that's like one of my happy places. And like I remember seeing you have like a lineup of characters and they're all like T-posing. People got like triangle heads and like square heads. I'm like, damn, these are crazy. And like what's going through your head when you're like, yeah, I'm gonna just put some characters together for this? Like, do you do utility
Yeah.
first or art first? Yeah.
It's tough. I feel like at least in my more recent games, my more recent like practice, I guess, I would say I start with the narrative more so, and I think like what role does this character fill?
Hmm.
Um, and then typically I'm working with like silhouette first, so just like no details, just like large shape. And I try to see, like you said, like can I identify different classes or different like whatever that character's like purpose is? Can I show that in the silhouette? So it's like if I can have my character that's sort of like towing the line between like good and evil or whatever, can I have them sort of like can I give them evil shapes more like of a hint of that, right? And can I combine that with my like sort of like good shapes uh, to make that character feel more ambiguous, like within the context of the lineup? Yeah, like I try to define like shapes that work with a character. I guess and its role. I feel like an example from my work, like with Bunny Hill, like the skiing game, it's like I just tried to make cool, fun characters. There wasn't really a ton of thought process because there is no really narrative in that game. It's just like I'm a snowman and I'm like flying down the hill. But in Cavern, it's like okay, like I have this kind of like part of the narrative is like okay, I have this sort of like inept, innocent kid, and he operates the camera, and so I'm gonna make him sort of um, like a like he's just a sphere, like he's just like he doesn't have any sort of like sharp corners. He feels almost like too pure. And so then like the headstrong, action oriented character is going to have a lot more like angular stuff, and maybe like things like, you know, uh like wide legs to make him feel more balanced, and like or like sort of not balanced, but to make him feel more sturdy and like headstrong, and so I think all of those like little things add up. But yeah, I feel like generally it's a lot of shape design, and then also I don't know. I think part of it is a little bit of just going with your gut. I think, like I I right now I'm like a part-time, I'm an adjunct faculty member at a art school. And so I teach a class about some of this stuff, and it's like some of the teaching has like actually like sort of reinformed me about things that I should be thinking about when I design a character. But like the go with your gut part is kind of like left off the table at an art school. It's like, no, we need a reason. Like it needs to be explained. And so, at least in my own practice, I try to blend both, where it's like, I want a little bit of like sort of spur of the moment creativity, and I want a little bit of that sort of like logical process. And hopefully, they kind of make something good. I'm hoping.
Yeah. You gotta lean into your own, I remember speaking with a guest in the past, and he spoke about like your own influences are
Mm,
the things that are going to separate you from like what you can't connect with other people on is what's going to help you create something that someone else can't. And so, like,
yeah. Yeah.
we went on this whole rant about how we were inspired by dollar bin games because our parents didn't buy, like, the new joints. They didn't buy like,
Yeah.
I only got the new games, like, Christmas, birthday, that kinda thing. Any other
Yeah.
time, I'm in the $5 bin. I'm buying these games that, like, people didn't really hear about or, like, it's old,
Yeah.
and, like, so I'm gonna have these influences that, like, other people who grew up with all the popular stuff aren't going to have, and I think the majority of people are going to be inspired by the popular things. That's why they're popular.
Yeah.
But then like you come along with this unique perspective, you got to be able to whisk that in. Like that's how you're going to separate it.
I think that's a great point. Yeah. 100%
Mm.
agreed.
Mm. So you decide to do your first Steam project. You're like, okay, I'm going to put this together. How are you approaching this versus approaching any other project that you've done before?
Yeah. I think for this one, it was Bunny Hill. It was the skiing game. Um, my only like goal was to release it. So there was no like monetary, financial, commercial success, any of that. It was
Mhm.
just make something playable, put it on Steam. And so I think that's what really changed. Like fundamentally, it was like I have a firm goal. I don't have like a timeline. I don't have an end date. But it was like I have a firm goal. So I need to get to the goal, which is it has to be playable, and I want to release it. And like part of it was I want to be proud of it a little bit. So I'm gonna put my best foot forward. So I think having that led me to like the proper questions, I would say, when developing a commercial game, or a product at all. And that would be like, can I feasibly get this done? And that, you might say, no, it's too big, or I need to scope it down, or things like that. And I feel like, um, yeah, that's what like fundamentally changed. I also think what changed for that would be just like taking each part of the process a little bit more seriously, and a little bit of it was sort of paring down my vision so that it's achievable, and then a little bit of it was still pushing myself, where it's like I'm going to take the process of 3D modeling seriously. And uh, I hadn't really made like I'd 3D modeled before, but I hadn't really made a character, and so I need to learn how to rig and like animate the character. And then I'm still keeping those things simple. Like that game has maybe two animations for every character, just like when you're in the air, or like a jump animation, and when you're on the ground. And so like it was a simple enough starting point, but I was still kind of like pushing myself into exciting new territory, so I stuck with it. I feel like that would be kind of where I differed from the past.
And how did you deal with like not biting off more? Well, before I say anything, you might have did it.
Yeah.
How did you
Yeah.
deal with with like not biting off more than you could chew? I think they call it scope creep is the
Yeah,
term.
scope creep.
Like, did you experience any scope creep with Bunny Hill?
Like, honestly, that was like the smoothest project. I feel like now I'm like worse at scope creep
Mm.
than before, but honestly, no, not too much scope creep on Bunny Hill. I think I was really dead set on releasing it, and I knew how out of my element I was. Like I was kind of at the point in that, like the awareness chart where it's like you know enough to know that you're pretty bad at this or like pretty stupid. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna like keep it as simple as possible. And so I didn't really let the scope creep too hard. I think, like it's interesting because even nowadays, I would say if I were to like remake Bunny Hill and release it again, as I did release it the first time, I would be like probably quite unhappy with it. I would say, "Oh, there's not enough content. There's all these issues." But it's like, that is something that's in your mind sort of stopping you from releasing that game. It's like it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to push through that. And so and you can always, I updated that game over the years and I think I got a lot better. And so I think that's also something too. It's like because I had that strict goal and I didn't care too much about the success of the project, I was willing to take more risks. I feel like I wasn't clinging to the idea of success so much. And I was like, oh, I'm going to ask a musician I really like to commission music for this game. And it went awesome. He was like, yeah, for sure.
Music was
I'm going
fire
to,
too.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't mean to
I,
cut you off. My bad.
no,
Keep
you're
going.
good. No, it's like I'm almost like scared to do that stuff now because I feel like I have this like weight on my shoulders of like doing better. It's like, oh, now I'm in it. I have to perform. And so I think, there's like even just talking about it now, there's a lot I could take away from this conversation just like about, not caring so much and trying to, be yourself and let the process like shape you. And yeah, I think and to not scope creep your game. But yeah.
It's rough. Like, I mean, I didn't have it with a game, but I had it. I mean, just with this comic, like
Oh yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
paneling it out, and I'm like, it got to a point. Mind you, I did this in like 2.5 weeks, and so I'm like, I'm paneling it out, and I'm like, dang, in order to do this story, I pushed up like once I was finished. I think I did like 34 pages or something. I'm like,
Yeah,
I got to do
yeah.
34 pages, and ooh, and that was like the smallest I could really condense it without it feeling like awkwardly paced. And I'm like,
Right, right.
and I'm just like having to just slave away after a certain point of just like, dang, like I'm kind of in it now. It's either this or like I just don't have anything to show up with. And
Yeah.
and it can be something where like the whole time in my head, the past couple of days, I'm like, my next comic is gonna be like 5 pages. I'm not
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
it. And it's an interesting thing because especially as a like if it's your first thing or if you're like, just starting out, it's easy to go far in your idea sense because you have all these ambitions. Like in first game jam with Wicker's Water Tower,
Yeah.
it was all kind of stuff I wanted to do in there. And it's like, bro, you have a week. You know
Yeah.
that? Like like you gotta keep it simple. And that's something where man, it's tough for me. It's tough for me. I can just sit there and just dream up all kind of stuff. And it's hard to practice like that kind of creative restraint, to be
Yeah.
able to kind of
Yeah.
cut this off. And it's like, okay, this is for next time, or this is all we can really manage right now. And then you kind of deal with the voice of this is all the like you kind of see what it is, and then you see like what it could have been in another light
Mhm.
or in another universe, and you're like, dang, but it could have been this cool. It could have been amazing. And you're like, you got to just be okay with that, because
Yeah.
people don't know what you thought it was going to be or what you wanted it to be. It's only like what's on the table or what's on the computer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. 100%.
mhm. And for the concept of Bunny Hill, like it's a very simple concept, but like what how did you take something so simple and make it like, okay, Bunny goes downhill? Like, I mean, simple. It's a race. It's very simple, and it's something that is very easily like expound upon, but like how'd you boil it down so far? How'd you start with something so simple? I would think of something like that, and I'm like, nobody would want to play that.
Yeah.
And it's like, how'd you get there?
Well, okay, yeah, that's actually kind of funny too. Um, I I actually I went skiing in Michigan for like the first time in college. So it was
Hmm.
like my college had like a ski trip. It was like $30 or something. And in
Hmm.
Michigan, it's all like landfill skiing. So it's just like a, pile of garbage with a bunch of fake snow. And
Hmm.
so um it was really cool. I really like enjoyed it. And I had a friend who had skied before, and so he kind of showed me how to do it. And we were by the end of the day we were going down like the tallest, hardest mountain, and we were just going as fast as we can straight down the hill. And so that was kind of like the inspiration for Bunny Hill. It was just like I like skiing, like I enjoyed it, and so I was like, oh, maybe I can make an experience that kind of is similar to that. And I think the coolest part about the skiing was like I just liked going really fast down a hill. So um, in terms of like another layer to this would be, I really didn't even like I wanted to make a fun game. I wanted to make something I was proud of, but I would say the fact that Bunny Hill has any like sort of legs to stand on at all is like quite an accident. Um I was like, and maybe this is like, maybe that's the proper way to go about it. I feel like I wasn't really focused on the game design, and I was just kind of making something, and it happened to be fun. And then um, when I did like get the chance to play test it with some of my friends, it was like, you know, it was very slow. It was kind of sluggish, but they were enjoying it. Like they were still laughing and having fun. But it was like, when they get going really fast, that's a fun part. And when they run into something unexpected, that's kind of a fun part. And so it was like, how can I maximize those things? And I just kind of followed that to like find the fun as opposed to like plan it in. I think it's really hard to plan like a fun experience for a game. And it's
Yeah.
a lot easier to like just play it and be like, I'm smiling, I should do more of this thing. And so I that's kind of where I'm at with Cavern. It's like I'm making a new game. It's much more complex. It's much bigger, and it's like I'm trying to make it fun, maybe by like way of logic. Um, but you also have to like test it and feel the fun, and so it's kind of a weird line to walk. But I would say in regards to like Bunny Hill and the like depth of the experience, it was really like the two biggest things were testing it and having that feedback and really pushing it, and then just kind of getting lucky in terms of like I like this experience. Maybe I can make a game that mirrors it, and people might like it. Um, I don't
Mm.
know. It's hard to pin down.
Yeah, but it makes sense though with what you're saying because it's like there's like the I'm seeing like a pattern or like a trend here where it's like
Mm,
you're kind of putting this like a big ball of clay on the table and then like you're shaping it,
mm,
and I was watching an interview, I forget who it was, but they were talking about how like you got to kind of let the thing tell you what it's going to be, what it
yes.
wants
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, and he made the analogy of like raising a child. And it's like you can raise a child and be like, no, you're gonna freaking play football because you're
Yeah.
big, and then the kid actually like loves to paint, and he's like, no, I'm actually I'm smooth on football. I want to play, I want to paint, I want to draw or whatever. And you can't plan and force that for that kid. You gotta like
Yeah.
just support wherever they're gonna go. And that's kind of how it feels. Just hearing, I mean, even hearing about your experience where like you're starting off just playing, like you're making other other games and you're like, okay, this is cool, or this worked. Like I'm gonna keep going this way or keep going that way. And like it's cool. Like you're starting off very simple, very like, "Okay, I'm gonna just do like this one thing or this main like experience, and
Hmm.
then depending on what people say or how I feel when I play it, I'm gonna go, you know, it's kind of like a metal detector almost,
Yeah. 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 That's a good
That's
way to
so
put it.
interesting.
I think that's a really good way to put it. And I feel like something that like contributes, something that makes me think of is kind of like the prototyping, kind of like sketch thing we're kind of discussing earlier. It's
Mhm.
like to me, like game jams, like your game jam project, so cool because it's like that's where you're forced to have a small scope. You're forced to kind of try to find something fun in a really short amount of time, and you're sort of like you're going to tell yourself, it's going to tell you what it should be, and it sort of like compacts the whole process. So like Cavern was originally like a game jam, um, and it was like, the game jam version still up, and people could play it, but it's like there's a few things in there where I'm like, oh, this is cool. I want to do more of that, and so I'm trying to like focus in on those things in the full game. But yeah, I really like I might have seen that interview, but I really like the quote of like having the thing show you what it should be, or like sort of you're like working in tandem with it to discover it itself. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, and because that was probably the hardest part of that game jam was like
Mm,
once we actually figured out what we wanted to do, because I did it with a friend, and like once we actually figured out what we wanted to do, it was like it was just kind of going from there. But
yeah,
man, it I had to keep scaling back. I had to keep trimming fat. I'm like, yo, this
yeah,
is
yeah,
I got too much on the plate. Like it's we're not gonna have all that. Or like I don't even know how to do that. Like how are we gonna
yeah,
have all this and like it's due Friday. Like
yeah. Like, are you gonna do it? No, I'm not.
yeah,
Yeah.
like man. And
Mhm,
I'm on YouTube like a mug trying to figure it out. And it's just
mhm.
and I kept having to like um just be like, okay, well, what is the simplest thing? But then how do you do that? I don't know if you would have the answer for everybody, but how would you do that in a sense of like when it's not a time thing? You know, I feel like the
Yeah,
sense of
yeah,
urgency that came from the game jam deadline was what forced me to do those types of things. But if somebody
yeah,
is just like they just want to get up and start a game right now and there is no thing. I mean, I guess they could join a game jam, but if they just want to do something for themselves, how do you go
yeah.
about making sure they keep their their like ideas very simple?
Yeah, I do think that's like the hardest thing. And like I think you're right in saying like, I think you're right. Like I don't have I don't have the answer for everybody, and I certainly am struggling to have the answer for myself because I still fall into like the pitfalls and the traps of like uh all these things. So I feel like what helps is like very clearly defined goal, and then in terms of timeline. So whether it's a game jam or a self-imposed thing or just like telling a friend and having them kind of keep you accountable. Um, like, hey, where's the game, man? Like you said it would be done. That helps a lot. And I think like that's why part of why I started like the YouTube thing is because, ideally like with sharing the progress, I have a little bit more pressure like externally to kind of like, not a ton, but a little bit more pressure to say, oh, I want to like release something new or I want to put something out. And so that's good. But I'm a big fan of biting off more than I can chew, probably more than I want to say. Like I'm more than I want to admit. So I definitely struggle with it. I definitely struggle with it. And that's like, with Cavern, it's like I've made a few games um commercially. They've been, some have been successful, some have not, more or less. And so with Cavern, like my goal when I set out to make this game was like I want to make a big game. And so it keeps expanding, and that's a terrible goal really because it just like it's not very defined. And so I do think it's going well, and I do think it will be good. Yeah, it's definitely like taken longer, and it's definitely like more than I thought originally. So yeah, and I do think that's kind of like a lot of game dev content and a lot of game dev advice is going to be like keep it small, keep it simple. And I think that's great advice. And it's advice I should listen to more often.
And how do you
So,
feel about Cavern expanding just in depth and story and scale? I mean, is it something I'm sure like at times like are you the only one working on it? Like is it just you?
yeah.
So like
Yeah.
to be the only one and it's like this thing that's just kind of is getting up
Just
there. How do
yeah.
you like how do you deal with that mentally? Is it something that kind of overwhelms you or you're kind of like um is it exciting or is it how does it make you feel and like how do you deal with it?
I would say I definitely go from or I'm definitely usually looking at it from the perspective of this is exciting and cool. And so I'm like looking for like I would say at the base level, like the new ideas and all the potential features I have for the game, like do excite me, and that's what kind of keeps me going. But I do uh, fairly often dip into the realm of like staring up at the mountain and saying it's impossible, like I'm never gonna make it, and so that's really hard. I think in terms of like Cavern specifically, I do think that's kind of why I'm like continuing to work on it and continuing to expand it, is because I think it has a lot of potential, and the ideas that I'm having about it, and sort of as I build it, it feels like it keeps revealing things to me, and that's kind of like what you mentioned with like letting the thing speak to you and let you know what it should be. I feel like I'm having that experience with Cavern, where it's like there's an emergent gameplay or an emergent feature that just like opens the door to like 10 new ideas, and it's like, okay, maybe I'll have one of them or two of them, uh, to limit myself. But ultimately, like it feels like um, it is like, yeah, it feels like kind of a not a perfect storm, but it feels like a good storm, and it's growing in a way that is like you know uh, like it feels logical, it feels consistent, it feels natural, and so I think that's kind of where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like plan that in. I'm gonna push it in. And but honestly, now I've been working on it for about like 2 years, and it is like system level. It's looking pretty good. Content needs a lot more content, and so I'm trying to like put myself in the position now where it's like no more systems, just content, just finish the thing, and I have this long thing behind me as a calendar, and I'm marking off the days, and I'm saying I'm gonna every day is another day where I can get more done on Cavern. So there's definitely a balance. I definitely struggle with it quite frequently, but I try to do a little bit every day. And
Can you describe how your day to day looks as someone that is hard at work at making their own game? If we
yeah,
were a fly on the wall in your house, what would we be seeing each day?
my current situation is also I'm a part-time like adjunct faculty at an art school, and
Hmm.
so I teach a class or two, and so you know certain days I'm going into the school to teach the class. I'm grading. I'm doing things like that. So, but it's part time. So, um, my idea there is that if I can arrange for a job that can kind of get me by, pay the bills, I can do that. And any other time, I'm kind of working on Cavern. So day to day, it's like, um, you know, I don't have any class on Tuesday, and so I wake up Tuesday, and I sit down and I look at my list and I say what's got to get done, and I have like a million lists around here, but um, it's just kind of whatever the next thing is. Recently, it's been, just to give you an example, it's been I'm trying to put a bow on like a Next Fest demo, and so there are a few like quality of life things I wanted to do, like when you first boot up the game tracks to see if you've ever booted it up before. If you haven't, it gives you a little options menu with like language and volume settings, and then you can hit OK and go straight into the cutscene or straight into the game. And then when the game loads up and you have seen that before, it doesn't even show you. So that's just like that's a note on my list. It says make a initial settings menu, and then now that that's done, it's like now I'm moving on to content for the next area of the game. So all new stuff. I try to prioritize in terms of like what's the most important next thing I can be doing, and I try to do that. I try not to get lost in the weeds. I have a lot of sort of like I have a lot of lists and documents, but I use those to kind of orient myself. So it'll be like I have here's 20 ideas for an object that are these are desired for the final game, and I think they're doable. Let's track. I'm going to do one, see how long it takes me. Okay, it took me an hour. Next one takes me 2 hours. Next one takes me 30 minutes, right? And as I kind of log those and start to you know create them, I get a better sense of moving forward. But I guess to better answer your question, I really spend a lot of time at the computer. I'm waking up, I'm grinding on the game. I take a break for dinner, um, and then there's a few things I do during my week to kind of get social and get out of the house. That's like super important. Have spend quality time with friends and but yeah, other than that, it's just really just me in my room.
Mhm.
So yeah. Um
Mm. I like that you time, or not that you time it, but, like, you look back at something and you see how long it took you to do it,
mm,
because then it'll kinda help you plan, like you said, it'll help you plan for, like, "Okay, this'll probably take this amount of time, because that'll be the biggest that's, like, the biggest hurdle for me when it comes to to-do lists, where, like, I'll make something and then, like, I got, like, 4 things to do, and the 3rd thing, I'm not able to do the 4th thing because the 3rd
yeah.
thing took way longer than it needed to, or, like, "Oh, I forgot how long this actually took, like, this I should have put on tomorrow because, it
Yeah.
would have been a better day for whatever." That's something I'm still in that. Imma see
Yeah.
about that because I'm sure that would
Hey,
help.
I'm there with you. That's why I do it. I feel like there have been too many lists where I'm like, okay, I've got to push out this thing, got to push out this thing, and I think
Mhm,
like I used to work at a game development startup, and I was programming there, and it was cool because at the beginning of the week they'd have a task meeting, and it was all very like um, structured, and it would be like, how long is this going to take you? And you would have to say, it's going to take me half a day, or it's going to take me 2 days. And then part of that answer to your boss was like working or factoring in, like I'm going to need some time to research this topic. Maybe I'm going to need some time to like actually execute. I'm going to need some time to test. And so all of that gets baked into like oh, it's going to take me, 7 hours. Um, and I think that really helped too, like with the scope of things. Is just like I feel like I never even day to day. It's like, oh, I got 5 minutes. I can make something real quick. And so I go in the kitchen and I start making it, and it's like, well, the prep takes a minute, and the to eat it takes 5 minutes, and so it's like it's not really a 5 minute experience. It's more of a 10 minute or a 15 minute thing, and it's like I'm grossly underestimating like certain things. So I think yeah, trying to bake in like all the time it takes to do the whole thing, that really helps me. But
man, that just a little side tangent, man. That them little, like, "Oh, dinner in 5 minutes." That's
yeah,
cap. It's gonna take you 5 minutes just to cut up the
yeah,
onion that they talking about, or, like, the
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
peeling garlic takes, like, 10 minutes by itself. Like, them folks are all like, and I know it doesn't sound as cool as, like, 17-minute dinner or something,
yeah,
but it
yeah.
is more accurate. Like, I
Yes,
don't
yeah,
know,
yeah,
people, because then people will literally wait till, like, they have 5 minutes, and then you look up and, like, you're running around the kitchen with, like, a chicken with his head cut off because,
yeah,
you're down on time, but that's really important when it comes to building a schedule, and, like, because then that even helps with, like, trust when it comes to if you're getting, like, a grant or a
mm,
sponsor from, like, companies and stuff, like, you're able to more accurately and or more precisely describe, exactly what's going to be happening when, because you have just such a good hold on, like, your time management and things. Um, in terms of, like, when you're like, the kind of lifestyle you're living now
mm,
as you're making this game, what do you find that you're sacrificing to make it happen? Because I feel like it's cool and it's nice to, like, be in that space of, like, yeah, I'm working at this thing, and people want that, but
yeah,
the big thing that'll kinda stop them is like, "Oh, that means I have to give up this, or I have to give up that."
yeah,
And, you know, what kind of things are you finding that, like, kinda have to go? And, how do you go about, like, do those things change periodically, or, like, how do you
yeah.
go about dealing with those things?
To give you the full kind of story, it was like I'm working at this game startup. They ended up sort of going belly up, and so that was kind of what I thought to be my opportunity to do something like this a little bit more full time. And so like I definitely, I work on the game, I teach at the school, and in terms of sacrifices, it is like, I play a lot less video games, I spend a lot more of my time sort of like consumed by this like idea and trying to figure it out. Like a lot of mental headspace is just taken up by that. And then also I just as a result of something like, hey, I'm going to play less video games because they're quite time consuming. It's maybe, oh, I get a little less social interaction with some friends that I play games with, or I get, I don't go out to eat as much, or I don't spend as much money on this or that, and it's like i'm I am in the position where it's like I'm trying to stretch this thing out as long as possible, or like as long as the game requires it to. And so that's a matter of budgeting and time management. And so the sacrifices are really, I do think it affects, like, I don't know. I think I could, in my current position, I think I could work like at McDonald's and be like more mentally free, at least in my free time, and like make more money. And so it's like, is it worth it? And the question, or like the answer to that question for me is I think so. I'm willing to like put in the time and take the risk and like bear the sacrifices to see if I can make something unique and interesting. Um, and like fulfilling. That's something that I would probably, I might not get at McDonald's. Not that McDonald's is, bad, whatever. But you know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah.
sure I would meet lovely people there and I would have a cool work experience with
I
them.
don't
But
know. Depend on the
um
McDonald's, to be
yeah,
honest.
I
It
suppose
depends.
yeah, it depends. But
Hmm.
yeah, so like yeah, definitely sacrifices. And I think like one thing I guess I'm kind of alluding to, and like I don't know if I would like exactly phrase it like this all the time, but like that sort of like mental freedom or like sort of peace. Um, it's like I think this happens really at a lot of jobs, but like the stress that kind of comes from like personal responsibility. It's like I can't say, "Oh man, my boss is really messing up this whole thing." It's like it's me, you know.
So are you.
So there's no scapegoat. There's no sort of like there's no out. And so I think that like personal weight is like that sort of mental peace. You can definitely find it, and that's something I'm working on too. Is just like finding peace and purpose in a little bit of risk, in a little bit of chaos. I think that's really good, and it can be done. But like that's something I struggle with as well. Is like I'm sort of sacrificing some of my like my boredom time, my free time, my mental energy. All of it's being like poured into this thing, and it is still like a risk that it works out. So
And it's so real. Like that's I think that's another thing that like it's a sleeper like
mm,
quirk with this type of stuff because when people have like a day job, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, you can peace out and you don't that's not even on your mind until tomorrow when you get back in there,
yeah,
or if you check the schedule or something like that. But it's like in projects like this, it's constant.
yeah,
You're in the shower and you're like, dang, what am I
yeah,
supposed to do about what? Or like
right,
if you're cooking dinner or whatever, and you're thinking about like something like, why is that not working though? Like, what can I do to fix
yeah,
this? Or like, who can I call to figure out that? Or like, you
yeah,
don't. There is no rest from it, not mentally, or
yeah,
unless you kind of plan those things out. If you're like going out with friends, stuff like that. Um, in terms of like your physical well-being, how do
mm,
you go about balancing all the computer time? Like this past couple weeks,
yeah,
I've been locked in on this comic. My back is cooked. It's
yeah.
completely just it's in shambles. And I'm like, I don't know. I may not be able to get all this worked out till like next week. And I'm just trying to figure out like, I mean, are you into any active hobbies or what do you get into?
Yeah, yeah. I definitely, I mean, you just saying that now is making me like stressed. So I feel you, but I feel like um honestly, like for the past little bit, I've probably been lacking on that just because I'm kind of like in sort of lockdown mode,
Mhm.
um, trying to push through. But like, yeah, my sort of summation of that would be I could definitely have a better relationship with the health stuff. But I do feel like, I'm I try to do, and like activities that I do, I try to do things that are active. Like I'll go play tennis or take a bike ride or just go climbing or you know um, go hiking or something like that. So I do try to do that. Not as often as I should, but and then I think it's just also like little things around the house. If I haven't done a push up in in a while. It's like, all right, I gotta like just do one, man. You know, it takes 2 seconds. The bar
Got it.
is pretty low, so yeah,
Yeah.
I
Mm.
think those things help. But yeah, um, I also think like eating wise, it's like I really don't like I love like Pop Tarts. I don't eat them often. You know, I love sweets. I have a huge sweet tooth, so
Same.
I try to stay away from that stuff. Part of it's like budget. You know, part of it's just for me at the moment. It's like I know I'm sitting so often, so I'm gonna like try to eat a little bit better. But um, yeah, I would say not I'm not I'm not good for the advice on that stuff.
No, I feel it. I'm just curious to know like how you go about it because like I
Yeah.
I mean I struggle with those same things where like this past couple weeks or so I've been like just like I haven't really been cooking like I normally do just cuz like
Mm,
all the extra time is going towards that so like either eating out
yeah.
often or like a lot more snack. I'm a snack fiend. Man, I don't know if have you ever had popcorners?
Oh yeah, yeah. Those are good.
Those are crazy. Those are crazy. And you look up and I mess around and X a bag, like I won't even realize. And I'm like hitting the corners. I'm like, oh shit. I know I've
Yeah.
gone too far when the pieces are small. You can't get no full chip anymore. Those are crazy.
That's
But
so funny.
yeah, just try to like replace all my snacks with like, just better stuff or I try to like get easy cooking meals or something like that. Like
Yeah.
if I have an extra 10 minutes or so, like let me just go and make this real quick because I know myself I'll get to snacking if something's not
Yeah.
easily available. Um
Yeah.
but cool. So I want to get into into Cavern, man. I think that this is I want to get more into it in terms of like what's a part of Cavern that's so that that is exciting you that maybe you haven't addressed yet?
Hmm. Hmm.
I
I
know
do
that,
feel.
and I don't mean like spoilers or anything or like these types of like content wise, but like maybe there's something underneath it all. Like there's an amount of work that's like maybe nobody's noticed that like you're really hype about,
Sure.
or like a mechanic or like something that's going so smooth that like, yo, this is tough. Like y'all have no idea what kind of work it took to make this go like this, but I'm hype about it.
I feel like I have maybe two answers to that question, and that's like the narrative. So I feel
Mhm.
like my past games have really had no narrative, and
Mhm.
so I think it's like really a cool opportunity to like practice writing, but also it's an opportunity for me to like express myself in a way that I haven't really with a ton of art
Mhm.
before. I feel like I'm almost like in my head, I'm almost like, oh, I've made like three pieces of art and like real art in my life, like things that actually like spoke about something meaningful to me. And they happened by accident. It was never like the cool sketch, or it was never the still life, or it was never the like, it was um just some quality that it's hard to describe. But I feel like Cavern is kind of getting there where it's becoming like narratively something meaningful to me, and I feel like it's yeah it's almost like hard for me to warrant too, because I'm like very I'm very, games should be played, they should be an experience, and I'm typically like much more a gameplay person uh, when I play games as well. So it's kind of like a really exciting thing to branch out into. Um, and so I'm hyped about that. I think there like I've got a lot in that sense that I haven't really shared, and I think people will like. Well, we'll see. But I showed my roommate the first cutscene, so he likes it. But we'll see if people like the story and stuff. Um, yeah, there's sort of like themes and tones in there that I feel like line up with the mechanics, and I feel like it makes for a whole complete experience. The other part would be like mechanically, I do feel like the system has like a lot of potential that I haven't really gotten to like bake in yet, and I think while people like playtesters are saying like, oh, this is a cool unique system, or it feels like it has depth, I feel like there's like the doors wide open. Like I want it to get so crazy that it's like like unrecognizable. So that's like the exciting part for me is like there's going to be an upgrade that lets you, like box select things to swap, and you're going to be able to turn like the whole level into like something else on a dime, and it's just going to be like nuts, like it's going to completely break every sort of like every level is just going to be like power crept to crazy. And so it's just going to completely sort of hopefully break all the like conceptions that you have about the game as you play it, and keep that exploration, keep that experimentation alive, which I think is like the coolest part about the mechanics. But another like example of that would be, I don't have it in the game yet, but and I do have some of the things like this in the game, but there are like there's going to be like a weapon like in the second area that's just going to be like a club with spikes on it, for example.
Mhm.
And every time you spawn the club, it'll spawn the spikes. And if you can swap out the spikes, you can like essentially like attach something to the end of the club. So I could have like a club with a torch, and it's going to like increase its range, and it's also going to like change the damage type. And so I'm going to make a few upgrades like that, but eventually people will figure out that you can make like, maybe the other iteration of that is like a scepter with like a gem. And so if you can swap the gem, uh, you can turn it into something else. And so you could like hypothetically chain you I think I'm going to make it so that you can't have the club equip itself, but I could do something like club, change the spikes into scepter, change the gem into club, change the spikes into scepter, and then I have like sort of infinite range like like tower weapon. Yeah, and so there's just like little things like that which I think people are like really going to go crazy about if they can like discover them on their own. They're going to be like, this shouldn't be allowed, you shouldn't be able to do this, but like the game will still be balanced around that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
you
and
know
people like stuff like that. People like whenever they can experience something like that, especially if they feel like they're the ones that figured it out. Like it's not
yeah,
something
yeah,
that
yeah,
was handed to them, but they're like, "Oh, but I could do this and this and this and this," and then like, yeah, that man, that sounds so exciting. Like, I can just see games like that where, um, I'll see stuff like that on like Twitter sometimes or X where they'll like if you're playing some like really cool roguelike and then you've got like some crazy build and you're just sweeping
mhm,
rooms like effortlessly and it's like the way that you're describing it, it's like stuff like that is gonna be happening like very easily or not necessarily easily, but like more often than not, which sounds
yeah.
super exciting. And in terms of the characters and the narrative, how did how did you start to put a narrative on it, or where did you kind of pull
Mm.
from when you were like, "Yeah, Imma make this Imma put a story in here."
Yeah. Well, I feel like, so I originally did the game jam, and I feel like it kind of had legs mechanically, and then I wanted to get like kind of like what you said earlier with the guest you had that said like they're like your personal inspiration is going to set you apart from any sort of Google search or any sort of like mass appeal. I feel that way as well, and so I was like, maybe there's a way I can get some inspiration for this game. And so it's set in a cave, and that was kind of established. And so I had a buddy of mine who was like interested in like caving. And so I was like, okay, like I've never been caving. I don't know anything about it, but I'm gonna go try it out. And so we went on this cave trip, and we found like this, apparently there are groups called like grottos around the US that are sort of like specifically focused on like caving, so they're like caving groups. And we met in the back, it was like a Facebook thing, we met in the back of like this like Ford dealership that they had like rented a room in, and like we talked to the people and they were super cool, and so we went on this caving trip. And the caving trip was, I guess its point was to go in this cave and sort of read these like little stations where they had sort of scientific instruments that gave some reading about the cave and how it had changed over time. So it would be like a log, and you can, I don't know, you could probably tell how a lot of this stuff is informing the game already. But it's like we'd go, we'd read the number, we'd say, here's the date, here's the amount of water that's evaporated from this thing, tells us kind of like about the humidity in the cave or something like that. But I kind of took some of those ideas and I said, okay, like narratively, and I guess this is less like story narrative, but sort of maybe more world building. The in the in the game jam, it was just like you get a new swap, it just kind of shows up on the screen, you get to pick one, and there's no reason to it. And then in the new cavern, it's like, oh, I can push the exploration ideas by placing instruments within the cave that you have to go interact with to sort of get these swaps from the environment. And so that's kind of like one place I got inspiration was that caving trip. And then for the narrative itself, I've been thinking about it for a while, and I do have a hard time with it just because I'm not particularly a writer, maybe not a good writer, and so we'll see. But I think part of it was like that caving, like when we went caving and we had this meeting, it was like just really interesting people there, really interesting like characters. And so like the guy leading the meeting was like, we want to go in this cave, like cave X, for example, and there's like this sort of government agency that like regulates this cave because it's not on private land. And so we have to talk with the government agency. And he was just like a real like he was a real like, I just want to go in the cave, like this government agency is like stopping me, and so like they're in my way kind of guy. And I thought that was really funny, like to have like a beef with this like sort of entity that like has essentially like nothing to do with caves, like period, just kind of like controlling like when you get to go and when you can't. And like his frustration and how casual it was, and like just so sort of like um how comical it was to me. And so like I think that's like a large inspiration for sort of some of the dynamics in the later part of the story, but it's also some of the dynamics for like the main character, or like the main sort of narrative characters. It's like the sort of cave explorer extraordinaire guy. He's like at odds with like this committee that controls the cave, but he's also filming a TV show for them in the cave, and so he has to kind of toe the line. And and I think that's just like a funny narrative thing to mess with. So, um, but yeah, a lot of inspiration came from that. Just like one little trip. It was just like one day out of the past 2 years that I've actually done something uh, sort of externally to find inspiration on the game. But yeah.
And how much of yourself do you think that you've put into
Hmm.
some of these characters, whether intentionally or unintentionally?
Yeah, I think there's a decent bit intentionally, or at least like subliminally, like subconsciously even,
Mhm.
that I have recognized and I know, and so I'm continuing to push them. So it's like a little bit of like a subconscious first step, conscious second step. But I would say a decent bit, in terms of in terms of the overall narrative, in like this is gonna sound I enjoy talking about this narrative stuff, but I also think it still feels a little like sort of um not cringy, but it feels a little silly, talking about like fake characters and my story for them. And so maybe that's just like a little personal insecurity I have. But the main story is kind of, and maybe this feeds exactly into my next point, but the main story is kind of like we have this kid and this sort of like caver extraordinaire TV guy. And so the the narrative that I want to push for the game is kind of like it's okay to fail and experimentation is necessary, and so like to learn, to grow up, right? And I think that's something I like really struggled with, is like me asking myself the question, am I doing what's right? Am I doing the most optimal best thing so that everybody around me is happy, so that like I find purpose myself, so that my greater purpose is fulfilled or whatever. um like that's been a huge kind of question that I struggle with. And so it makes it, that sort of like underlying thing makes it hard to fail. It makes it hard to say, I'm going to do something for 2 years and it's going to be uh, ultimately useless, right? It feels kind of bad. But it's part of, I would say I would argue it's a necessary part of the process. And I think like the difference between kids and adults are like kids take things literally and they're hopeful. They like believe in, like they believe what you say to them, and they also like will do whatever in their power to make those things real, no matter how like kind of fake or joking or sort of like crazy they might be. And so you have this kind of like disenfranchised like older guy with the TV caving thing, and he's he likes his job, he does what he can, but he still jokes around, he still has this kind of like almost defeatist attitude. And so like, oh, I'm gonna fight the man, but not too much. And like as a kid trying to like set your aim and your goal, I feel like that can kind of be like a conflicting thing, even if it's realistic. And so it's kind of about the like meshing between like old guy has a point because you live in the real world, but kid has a point too, which is like being hopeful and like, you know, um, like aiming up and like whimsy and things like that. So I think, yeah, kind of a weird, hacky way to say all that, but um, I definitely like struggle with those both in my life. And I think that kind of results in like my own experience being a game developer. It's like I had a more normal job and I stopped doing it or it sort of fell out. I didn't search for like another sort of typical 9 to 5 because I thought I would take a chance on myself. I thought I would take a risk. And so it's a little bit of like the whimsy, like hope. What if I could make a game and what if it could work out versus the sort of like stable reality of like just just like falling in line isn't the worst thing ever. It's not. It works for most everybody. It ultimately is like good enough. And so those two things kind of like combating. Um, yeah, in my brain, I think a lot of that goes into the game.
And I was dang, I was watching another interview, can't remember the name, but they they spoke about like the importance of like you have to be like you have to pour your own self into it. And if it's something
Mm,
that can even make you if it's something that can have you like a little bit insecure, a little bit
mm,
like it's a little
yeah,
hesitant to share, like I don't know. That's like right where you want to be because a lot of times everybody's playing with the same cards. Nobody wants to throw down that first one now. But then once you
yeah,
throw it down, everybody's like, "Oh, okay, we're fine." Everybody starts throwing down this card, and so like to be the one to be that first, throw down my ace. Fine, this is what it is, and then like it will light the path for other people to continue down that
mm,
same thing. And so like I think that's a great premise and a great like theme to the story. And I think also um like I feel that. I personally feel that sort of thing because it's like you got to point like you have to honor both viewpoints. Like both of these
yeah,
people are like just in how they feel. And I think a lot of times like the right answer is, I mean, there is none really, which is another whole thing where it's
yeah,
like, ain't no right answers here. It's just kind of what you do. And but like trying to find your own balance between these two viewpoints, I think
yeah,
is what would make it would is what I think would be optimal for most people. It's like you can't
mm,
um or like dang, I can't even say shouldn't, but like just
yeah,
like it has a certain set of problems to go one direction too crazy or too
yeah,
far.
yeah,
But having even having a game that can kind of put those different viewpoints on display, and like I think over time you'll see players start to find their own uh like where they decide to strike put the
yeah,
flag down between the two. And I think it'll lead to some really good conversation between you and your players because like they'll be able to like converse. There'll probably be people that will like you might have a, an opinion on you know how you feel about these types of things versus like another player, and they're like, I don't think so. I agree more with this person. And so that just makes for like good dialogue. And then you can even have players talking about that between each other. And like I mean, I think it's great. And I know that it can definitely be a little nerve-wracking, but I think you're in a great place with it, man. I think it's grounds for some really good
appreciate you.
stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And speaking of failure, I know that like you spoke a lot about, or you made some videos about a pretty
Hmm.
harsh critique you got from AirStar.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I remember I don't remember the comment word for word, but I remember I remember you like saying, I'm like, "Dog, this kind of rough." And um but the fact that I mean, I don't know how you took it before you decided to make the video. I don't know if it was
Yeah.
like a lot more like if you took it a different way, but the fact that like after it was all said and done and you were able to speak on it, um like I was really like happy with how you decided to take
Mm,
what this person said. You were able to kind of extract the wisdom from all the noise they put out.
mm,
And ultimately you were able to make a game that I think is more satisfactory for you, which is I think which was like the big takeaway from it at all. And I
yeah.
know people who don't have it in them. They have too much pride or too much of like a temper to kind of to be able to see the nuance in what somebody's saying. They can't hear the wisdom over all the crazy words or just stuff. And just wanting to know uh how you would kind of advise people to take harsh critiques. Like I
Sure.
play a lot of chess, and there's this
Mm.
old head I play with all the time. And every time he's better than me. But every time I lose, he's always in my ear talking about something. He's like, "Oh, see, you should have did this, and you should have blah, blah, blah." And like, I'm not trying to hear all
Yeah.
that, man. But
Yeah.
I remember one day he humbled me. I had a really prideful, like, I had a really prideful kind of spirit about myself, and like, you could take away all my pieces. I'm just gonna like run around with the king until like you gotta checkmate me. I'm not gonna resign. I'm not turning my king over. Like, nah. And he's like, "Bro, why you doing all that? Like, just give it up." And I'm like, "Nah, because I ain't finna give up on you, whatever." And
Yeah.
he's like, "Look, like you run around with the king and all that, that's not gonna make you any better." And ever since then, I was like, "Ooh, that's he's kind of right. He's kind of
Yeah,
right with
damn.
that."
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, and it just, and ever since then, like every time he would go off on his little rants and stuff, I would always just pull away little bits of knowledge here and there.
Mm.
And it just I'm curious to know how you go about taking the wisdom from harsh words.
Yeah, first of all, I would say, man, what an awesome that was an awesome story. I love that story. Um, but yeah, I feel like honestly, I feel like I don't know. I'm maybe to be like too like sort of um sort of overall perspective about it, but like growing up it was always like, respect other people. um like it was always compassion, and that was like a really kind of ingrained thing. And then also, like, within that comes, respecting other people means like their frustration, maybe not how they like express it, but how they experience it is like valid. And in a way of like games, especially like with reviews and stuff, um, I think someone else has said this before me, but like the the review and like a frustration or any sort of harsh words or any sort of like ideas even about what the game should be, they're pointing towards a problem with the game, and it's your job to sift through like how much do I want to care about that problem. But ultimately it was like, a problem for a player. They could just not be the audience for that game. They could be in a bad mood. But, you know, like there is probably, I would say, a nugget of something good in there, like something you can take away from what they're saying. Like, and I think that's also like with the respect thing. It's like I firmly believe that no matter who I'm talking to, I have like infinite stuff to learn from them. So it's like, like there's like it doesn't matter who it is. It's like I'm gonna try my best to learn something from them. And I think people have a lot to give, and they give it subtly, and they give it just sort of all the time, in their like lived experience. So I think, yeah, I'm just a really big fan of like hearing people out. And I think part of that, like you said, like with having temper or like ego and pride and things like that, I definitely struggle with it. Like I definitely say, oh man, that kind of bugs me. Sometimes I'll get a review or an email and it's just like ripping me to shreds, and it's like, like I'm gonna have to sit with this for a few days. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be a little miffed about it, but I'm also gonna say, at the end of it, I want to say, maybe they have a point. What's their point? And so I always try to like interpret what people are saying in the most positive light as well. I think that's just like a good practice. And I think like something that really pushed me to do that and have that attitude is like um I mentioned my brother, like he's we're like very similar in age. We're about a year apart, and he studied philosophy in college. And so he came home from college and he was always sort of like beating me. He's like working me in these arguments about like moral or ethical issues or just like large ideas. And so I'm just getting like worked on this stuff. And I always felt like I could hold my own, but he knew the terminology. He knew sort of like he had a better way to express the ideas that I was trying to express. And so it was very frustrating, and we would like, sort of get into these like shouting matches, and we had a good enough relationship that it didn't like, tear it down. But like ultimately what I learned from all those was, like the emotional side of a conversation is like very easy to reach, and at that point you start to like lose progress. You start to like lose reality, and you sort of get lost in the weeds. And I think um, like when you start to react to things and sort of like send out daggers and that kind of stuff. And so, but it's like those conversations we would ultimately got kind of take an arc. We would say, okay, we're having a casual conversation. It erupts into something like crazy. We get all feisty, and then as we sort of like wrestle with each other to like think about these ideas, we ultimately come to an understanding. And typically that understanding was like, we're talking about probably mostly the same thing. We're just like really bad at telling each other like where we differ. And so that's, I think, like led me to be like, I can interpret your words in a positive light because you're probably like at heart, you're probably good. You probably have good intentions. I just need to understand like where those like what are those intentions pointed at, I don't think people are really that cruel. And so like I don't think that guy posting that review is doing it for cruelty's sake. He's maybe feeling cheated out of like the $4 he had to pay for my game. Maybe he's just feeling like he wants a little bit more content of my game, but it's like my job to kind of decipher that. So long-winded answer, but I think like yeah, I really do like I want to hear people out, and I want to like set aside my own emotional reaction to get to the core of what they're saying.
And that's that's a skill that is simple but not easy.
Easier said
That's
than done. Yeah,
absolutely, and it's I mean, that's a very admirable quality of yours because I mean, it's tough, man, especially depending on like how deep they cut. And like that was
yeah,
kind of my that was going to be my next question was like how do you find the nuance between when somebody has something to say versus when somebody's just trying to just talk mess or they're trolling or they doing too much?
sure, sure. I feel like, I mean, yeah, I feel like typically I don't get trolled too hard by people, but I do feel like I'm like just a big fan of laughing. So and I enjoy humor. So like I feel like it's one way to like really easily tell if someone's serious right off the bat is to like join them in whatever they're saying. It's like if I can lose my ego and they're making fun of me and I can kind of join them in saying like, haha, yeah, like maybe I'll do this next. Like that's funny. Then it kind of dispel like I'm on their team. And like ultimately I'm not being self-deprecating to like support them in what they're saying. I'm just, making light of what they're saying. And if they find a problem with me joking around with them, then I can say, oh, they're actually like pretty serious. And I can have a serious conversation. And I can say, like, what do you mean by that? Like, since you are serious about this, like that joke was pointed at like a much more concise like topic, right? You don't have to joke about it. You could just be straight with me, just say it how it is. We'll figure it out. So I feel like, you know, I don't like conflict, and so I'm like very like quick to like I'm okay with confrontation as long as it's like trying to end conflict. Which and I think the best way is like if you have a problem, like say it right now. Let me know because the only way I can fix it for you is if I know about it, and the only way we can come to an understanding is if we both like kind of level with each other. So Um, I think that's like in anything, you know, relationships, like friendships, yourself. If you're not going to be like honest with yourself, you know, you can't make any progress. So yeah, I don't know.
Mm, it's so real. So real. What a great answer to that question. I mean, it does like you're able to have much more of a like an efficient way of conflict resolution when whenever you're able to step outside of yourself and kind of look at a problem as if it was like something on the car. You know, nobody's like
Yeah,
the car's not pissed, you know, it's just
yeah,
it
yeah,
needs the oil change. Okay, cool. This is what it is. But like I guess the emotion would be like it's hot or something. Like, you know, pop the hood and it's all the
right,
stuff coming up. You're like, oh shoot, okay, let me give this a second and then I'll come back and fix
yeah,
this. Or like, you know, if you can get through all of that, you know, it's just like, let me just see what it is so we can actually fix it, you know.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
And what
Mm-hmm.
just to sort of finish that off too, like I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking all this big stuff about, you know, how it should be. These are all like ideals I try to hold myself to. So it's like I'm not perfect. I know that. And so that's part of it is like the fundamental understanding that like I will mess up and I can correct it, you know. I can be a better person tomorrow than I was today. And that's like a, you know, probably the most important thing past all the game stuff is just like being all right as a person, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And,
it's the ideals, but I mean, we are all imperfect. You know,
mm,
and life is a game of exceptions. That's one thing I have learned,
yeah.
you know. Like people got all kinds of it's interesting to see and hear like uh people like people talk about things and it's not to say that people don't try to uphold them or anything, but it's just like they people. Like we're not
Yeah, yeah,
robots. Yeah, we don't do everything perfect every time, you know, and so um I don't know. I think it kind of points towards um kind of going off on a tangent here a little bit, but it makes me think about with like music artists and stuff. Sometimes they'll get in the
mm,
news for like something they said that was a little crazy or like
yeah, yeah,
something weird or whatever, and they're just like, "Would you expect these people to just be perfect because they make good music?"
yeah,
Yeah, that person, they are 22. They are figuring it out.
yeah,
They going that's not the last stupid thing they're gonna do.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Or like if I was held accountable for every stupid thing I would do, like you know, I'd be better off dead. You know, it's like like
Mhm.
you gotta treat yourself with the same metrics you're gonna use for other people. You know, yeah.
Yeah.
So
It kinda helps you find that grace for people too, like, knowing that,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
you also make mistakes, so then it's like, well, I mean, this could just be one of them days for them too. So one direction I wanna go is in your creative aspirations for
Mm,
game dev. Do you have, like I know that Cavern is a big part of your current life, you know, I'm sure there will be a day where you finish Cavern, you know, and then you'll be moved on to something else and something else. But do you have a main quest as a creative?
mm. I yeah, I do feel like ultimately I do want to be. Mm, I do want to be like commercially viable, which is kind of like a maybe more like underlying goal,
Mhm,
um, or maybe even surface level goal. But like I want to be able to do this stuff for the foreseeable future, and so that's part of it. In terms of like actual creative things, I would love to be able to um, just like I think the commercially viable thing speaks to this, but I'd love to be able to have the freedom of time and peace of mind to be able to like discover things and experiment. Um, like that's something that like we kind of talked about, like scheduling and being like strict and lists and things like that, and timing. And it's like a huge part of the creative process is just kind of like you know letting yourself be bored and letting yourself discover things. And so I think at least for me, you know, and I think like ultimately I would love to be able to do that more, and just kind of see where it takes me. I feel like I'm on the roller coaster, and I would like to continue to like be able to pay the price of admission, you know? Uh yeah, I also think like just time and space allows me to like would allow me to like branch out more. I enjoy like painting and woodworking, and I do a little bit of music stuff for the game, and I it would be really cool to like sort of eventually reach something like interdisciplinary studio where it's just, you know, I make art and I do what like my brain tells me to do when it comes to like, you know, the next creation. And I get to be free with it. I get to say like what medium would best suit this idea, what, you know, what ideas have weight and meaning for me and what are unique. So I feel like, yeah, maybe kind of not a ton of like hard goals, but kind of abstract ones.
Yeah. There was I was just talking with a friend about this, and it, like, broke my brain. It kinda like, I got stretch marks somewhere on here because of it. And, it was the way he explained it, like, the fact that you said, something will come to me and I will ask myself, "What medium is will this best be represented?" Like, that it really put into perspective of, like, these are tools. All of this stuff, all
Yeah.
these things are tools, and I used to think they were, like, identities or like classes almost.
Mm,
Like you were a designer, you were a painter, like ranger, mage, fighter, this
yeah,
like
yeah.
and you don't see a fighter throw a fireball. Well, I mean some games sure, but like in a general
Right,
sense, like that's the wizard's job. You don't do that. You don't
right.
you don't fire arrows, you're a barbarian, whatever. And I'm thinking like, "Oh, you don't do that because you do this or you don't do this because you do that." And I thought that, like, this was just kind of my lane, and I just gotta, like, run this. I've
Yeah.
kinda picked it.
Yeah.
And if you change, then you kinda gotta go back,
Yeah,
kinda like,
yeah,
"Okay, I leveled this up. I'm a mage level 10, but now I'm a fighter. I gotta start at level 1." But
yeah,
it's like you can still use, mage skills on your new class. Like, you got all
yeah,
these different ways that you can mix and match different things. And I mean game dev has helped teach me that too because you have to wear so many different hats. And there I mean in order to if you're going to be somebody to make your own game all by yourself, you got to do a lot. And it really just helped me see like wow, all of this stuff you're really just upping your craft in service to like better bring your ideas to tangible form. Like
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
whole like that's why we get better at this. That's why we get better at that. It's not just to say that I'm this. It's like I get to bring this idea. Like if the idea comes to me and they're like, "Well, I want to be a game." And you're like, "Well, dang, I suck at code.
yeah.
I got to do this so that I can bring this idea to life. It's not for the vanity of saying I'm good at code. It's like, no, I get to
Yeah.
bring this thing to the world. And like that, it just, that completely just got me. Like, I have not been able, I've thought about that like every day since we talked about it.
Yeah, hearing you put it like that too, it's like yeah, it's like I I don't like I try to think about it like that as best I can, but it's hard to it's a hard thing to be too, you know? Like it's like allowing yourself the mental space and the openness to even like do something like that. Um and like yeah, yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Mm. Yeah, that one's it's crazy. It's a crazy phenomenon and like the fact that also in your waking life there's actually I want to address this in the form of a question for you. We are oftentimes just like how you said for Bunny Hill. Bunny Hill was inspired by Ski Trip. Cavern's narrative was inspired by, a cave trip.
Mhm.
What are other non-creative um parts of your life that you find have the most influence on you? I feel like we're oftentimes influenced by things that don't involve art.
Tough question. I feel like I'm very much so like a like I try to see art in everything. like
Yeah.
like even if it's like I feel like it hits a lot more things than like sort of people normally think. And then also like, as like as an artist, I'm sure you see how it sort of weaves its way into everything. So like it's a tough question to answer because I think it's like, it's hard to look anywhere without being like, oh, there was like creative human hands, involved somewhere in this process. But I feel like, yeah,
If it'll help your question, if it'll help you answer the question a little easier, maybe not non-creative, but just anything outside of the medium that you do. So if you're,
I see, I
like
see.
outside of game dev, outside of like the computer, like what are
Yeah,
things
yeah, yeah.
like in your physical world around you that are inspirational to you?
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely like reading is a huge one. Um, that's kind of something I mentioned or I didn't mention in my sort of like day to day. I try to
Mhm.
spend a little bit of time reading.
Mhm.
Um, that's a
Kind of
big
stuff do
one.
you like to read?
A lot of like science fiction, a lot of sort of just fiction in general, like novels, like classics, that kind of stuff.
Ooh, I got
Um,
s got some recs for you. I got some recs for
oh
you.
yeah,
I
heck
like
yeah, yeah.
to my girl got me on the Kindle train, man. I
Okay,
read
yeah.
The Kindle goes kind of crazy. I'm not gonna lie. Like it was I was like, this is silly. Like this is a little tab. Like everybody's trying to digitize everything. But then I was like, damn, I can read in the dark. I can turn the light
Yeah,
off and
true.
read and depending on how big the book is, like if you get to the beginning or the end of a book, like you got so many pages on one side, it kind of
Right.
is weird to hold. So that Kindle is
Yeah, yeah.
kind of nice. You got like 12 books on this little something you can just throw it in your bag. It's
True.
you know,
True.
it's kind of nice. Not gonna lie. But yeah,
That is
I do a
like
lot of
no,
reading
yeah.
too. Mhm.
Sweet.
Yeah,
I
I do a
gotta
lot of reading and I can like I'll send you some recs for books that like I've read recently and but yeah, keep going. I didn't want to cut off your
sweet.
answer.
No, you're good. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm definitely I love book recommendations. I just finished a few books that got recommended to me by a few friends and like yeah, pretty varied stuff. Like one was called Endurance. It was like about a voyage through the Antarctic. Um it was like it was like a historical recounting. That was pretty crazy. Um
Mm,
the other one I read was like a science fiction book by Philip K. Dick. He's really, really awesome author. Like a lot of his stuff, but yeah, just really like crazy dystopian, interesting tech, a lot of weird sci-fi stuff. But yeah, I feel like books kind of just open, at least like really good books, to really inspire me for like the narrative stuff in the game.
mhm,
Um, they really help me see how like it's all one big puzzle piece or like not one big puzzle piece but it's all one big puzzle and each thing is a piece that kind of fits in and it fits in its sort of place because it's like designed to fit there, it's like
mm,
um it's almost like all the resolution of the story feels satisfying and good because or like not even good but like it makes sense because the author like thought about all these things and laid out the sort of breadcrumbs in the right order to get you to like the final realization in like a super impactful way. So I feel like yeah, books are really awesome. Outside of that, like that's more maybe like a thing I personally do. Outside of that, it's just really friends I would say are my biggest inspiration. I feel like just like and people in general. Like there's always like yeah, it's hard to beat like human experience. It's hard to beat life, like it just throws so much at you. It's always fresh, it's always interesting. And even if it's whether it's good or bad or ugly uh or cool or it's going well or great, all of it has like all of it is just so full of, you know, it's just so full of life. It's hard to use any other term, It's just so full of like um it's just so full of information and detail and nuance and there's just so much to pull from it. So I think, just living and um being present. I try to be really present. Um and that's where I'm like, if I'm going to find a time to go be with friends, it's like I'm going to shut off my game brain and try to, just be with people in the moment. And I think, that's one of the best things you could do. So, yeah.
Mhm. There's, I do a lot of roller skating, and when
Mm,
we go to the rinks, I I always, like, I'll take off my shoes and stuff, and I'll put everything just, like, in my jacket or my shoes, and I'll just leave it in the corner. And I'll just be, like,
yeah.
out on the rink floor for, an hour, 2 hours, or whatever, just, like, completely just there, in the music,
Yeah.
just on my skates, on the floor, and it's really it's essential, like, when you experience it, you realize, like, "Oh, yeah, like, I need that, like, that unplug," you know?
Yeah.
And, I don't know, I think it's nice to just to be there for your friends because, like, they're deciding to, like, take the time out of their day to, like, be here with you, and so, like,
Yeah.
I always think, like, it's only right to do the same for them, like, be
Yeah.
there with them,
Agreed.
so mhm. And, this, um thinking about I was thinking about, some book recs for you, and I thought of this one. You might even like it more because of Cavern right now,
Okay.
but there's a book out by an indie author called Depths of Vanalf. You ever heard of that one?
No,
And
have not.
the one the one-liner of it is, like, people people go into a cave to get powers. Like, people aren't born with powers. They go into a cave and, like, experience different challenges and things to work their way to the bottom to get powers. And depending on
Okay.
who you are and how you got to the bottom, you get a different type of power.
Cool.
And I
That's
was
cool.
like, dang, I haven't read it. It's on my, like, TBR, my to be read, but they said that it's like reading a video game. That's what they said. That's like the vibe, as TikTok would say.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, that sounds cool, man.
Mhm. And
Cool.
are you familiar with Kobe Bryant's Goat Mountain?
No. It's just like a biography kind of thing, or?
No, no, no. So it's just like a term he made. And he was like, sometimes
Oh,
I have
okay.
to go up Goat Mountain, and I have to conversate with people who share my obsession with the game. And he was at that level where his
Yeah.
peers were also like the greatest to ever play the game. And he would just talk to people, or he would kind of he had like people around him that were something like his counsel, but also like his inspirations at the same time. And
Mm,
I'm curious to know if you have a goat mountain and who's on your goat mountain.
that's a good question. I mean, I like the concept a lot. I do like I have seen a little bit of like, I've seen like a few Kobe interviews where it's just like, you see it in his eyes and you see like the way he talks about the game and how like the work ethic and just yeah, all that. So like I do have a buddy who also makes games. His name's Calvin, and he's great. He like I will sort of hit him up and we'll talk about some concept and we'll talk it through. We'll, you know, for hours just have a conversation about one minute kind of game dev thing, and it's like it feels like it's not only like challenging my own ideas, but it's also like strengthening them. It's also, he's giving input, he's giving his own ideas. And so, like, those opinions just start to like sort of spiral upwards into a stronger and stronger idea. So, I think, yeah, I think that's like really, I'm really lucky to have that in my life. Uh, and in the form of like a good friend, and also, yeah, I think it's super important, at least like, I think it's super important for, like, any kinda craft because you you start to feel alone and just having somebody along there, along the journey with you, uh, is yeah, that's inspirational and, like you say, like, it's sort of it's challenging you, but it's also inspiring you, so, yeah.
Mm, okay. Is there anybody else on the goat mountain?
I would definitely say, like, like, um, family and friends. My girlfriend is like super supportive. She has an interest in what I'm doing. Um, like even though she's not a huge gamer, and so that's like a blessing there too. Being able to chat with somebody about the struggles and the sort of like not the technical aspect of it, but the more sort of like real life aspects of it. I feel like that helps a lot. Um, and then I think all the people kind of contribute to the Goat Mountain a little bit. Um, but yeah, those are kind of the ones that like really stick out to me as being like, oh, this is a frequent interaction that I have that directly correlates to the game. But yeah, um, family, friends, it's just all, you know, all that love and support in any way you get it. Even if it's from a stranger. I think another thing too is like, you know, like being part-time faculty, it's like I get to meet amazing students that are really passionate, and like the students like prop up, these ideas, they challenge the ideas, they work with them themselves, they find ways to be unique. And I think it's just like really cool to see that as well. So I would say, that's a big part of at least my current like experience. And that's something that kind of has helped me a lot and has propelled me forward as well. As much as I try to help the students, they're really helping me out a lot. So
Mhm. I'm also curious to know big, like all-time inspirations in terms of like, do you have any
Mm,
people who were like, um, some of the people who made like world-breaking games or wrote crazy books or did, like the Akira Toriyamas or
yeah.
the, that type of thing. Do you have any people like that that you look up to?
In terms of like novels is probably a big one, but my favorite author is Kurt Vonnegut. Um, he a lot of people read like Slaughterhouse-Five. That was kind of a popular like high school book, but
Mhm.
like a required reading. But a lot of his other stuff is really good. I specifically like his book called Sirens of Titan. That's like a very influential thing for me.
Mhm.
Um, and then in terms of like visual art, um, I really like um Sakurai. He does all the Smash Bros and like Kirby Air Ride and those games. So I'm like a huge fan of Smash Bros Melee. I'm a big fan of like all these old GameCube games I used to play. So like the GameCube games are kind of really big inspirations.
Mhm.
Um, in terms of like musicians are like a huge one for me. Um, my favorite my favorite artist is they go by Wikipedia or like Delta on certain platforms, but they're sort of like a I don't know, they're like a sort of younger artist, and their just output is just so consistent and amazing. And I really think like that's like hugely inspiring for me. It's like I went to college, I'm out of college, like I'm trying to make my way in the professional world, and it's like as like in entering adulthood and things like that. It's like that here's a I started following this artist when they were like in high school, like a kid, and they're just putting out like generational stuff to me. It's like it's like this is legendary work, and like I can't even imagine uh like I it's yeah, just awesome to see, and like I want to push myself to like match that passion and that effort. So I think yeah, there's a few other like kind of I listen to a lot of music on like SoundCloud. I'm not super huge on um like I like a lot of mainstream music, but I use SoundCloud just because it's like I don't know, I find the weird stuff on there and I like that. So um I think yeah, a lot of musicians. There's one I remembered his name. I've been trying to think about it this whole time. But visually, uh, when I first got on Instagram, there's this artist that I started following named Alvin Phi, I believe.
Alvin
Um,
Five. That sounds so
and
familiar.
he does these like really like they're so simple but like so elegant illustrations. He does a lot of like editorial work now. I think he's done a few short comics, but like every sketch of his is just gold. And like I that's like he's like top of the list for illustrators for me. But yeah, love that guy. So I think I think there's I don't know, yeah, those are probably the goats. In my mind. They're sort of my personal like arsenal of inspo. But and then I guess another thing would just be like older there's a few like old animes that are really cool that I've take a lot of inspiration from, like Cowboy Bebop and kind of the sort of those are popular classics. But yeah, a lot of really cool stuff like that, I think. Yeah,
Mm.
but it's interesting because I feel like I don't take like I like games a lot, but I don't find it being like the most like the bulk of my inspiration. I feel like it mostly comes from like an animated movie or a piece of music or an illustration. Those are things that like or a book. Those are things that really get me going. And yeah.
You know, that actually perfectly segues into the last question I have for you. It was based on what you do, how does that change the way that you see the world around you? So, like for me,
Mm,
being a mural artist and character designer, I study people's mannerisms, I study people's, like, characteristics physically, like, just
yeah.
how they speak and how they move, how they dress, colors, shapes, and then I look at walls, like, I'm driving down the street, I'm like, "Dang, that's a paintable wall right there." I
That's a
keep pushing.
nice wall. Yeah.
Yeah, like, other people ain't studying that, but I'm looking
Yeah.
at it 'cause I'm all over it. So, how does that shape out for you? What's that look like in your life?
I don't know. I okay. Well, I feel like here's maybe the most succinct way I could put this would be I have these like large Google documents with just a blank page with a bunch of text, but all of it is just like little tidbits here and there from my life. If it's something funny, something like a quote or an interaction or an idea, like a broad idea, um, those things they just get logged away. I feel like it's just like like I'm storing like little bits and pieces of my life to sort of create this like breadcrumb like trail towards like the ultimate like hallucination of like whatever this is, you know. And I feel like that's what informs like the artistic, you know, that's what like I want to inform my artistic process is like just a bunch of like sort of random disparate things because when I do experience life I feel like there there's just so much little detail, and the detail I notice like you're saying like the wall, it's like, you know, maybe it's like the surface of a material for like texturing. Maybe it's like a sound for a musical cue. Maybe it's like a sort of general vibe for a song. Maybe it's, you know, a visual idea. Maybe it's, you know, something more literal, like, you know, the way a tree grows, or, you know, why it grows that way, or something, you know, factual that you can kind of draw upon to create different narratives and different systems. So I feel like it's kind of all over the place, honestly. Like if you read like like the hope I think is if you read the document that I have, it would like make some sort of sense, but you wouldn't be able to say why. And I certainly can't, you know. But yeah, it's kind of just all over the place. I feel like just yeah, funny stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's so funny that you say that, like, in terms of the the little things that you kinda experience in life that you could put into games. When I started like, after I made that game, I went I go to this car wash every now and then. When I get my card and I pay for the little car wash, when the
Uh-huh.
payment gets approved, there's this sound. It's like a little ding or like something. I'm like, "Dang, that's
Yeah.
so unique. I gotta come back here with like a mic or something." Like, that's gotta be something. That's gotta be like an item pop-up or like
Yeah.
that's gotta be a headshot sound. That joint is crispy. Like, and it's just funny
Yeah.
to see how like it really, because you draw so much inspiration from every part of life, it almost, in a way, I have to control myself from being excessive in, like, what I try to
Oh
save,
yeah.
because then you're
Yeah.
like,
Me
"Oh,
too.
like, all this could be like, all of this is good stuff," and you're just looking around, like, on a normal like, on a Tuesday, and, like, ain't shit going
Yeah.
on, but everything's valuable. It's so crazy because it's, like, it's endless inspiration, but then it's like, "Oh god, I gotta tailor this, like, Imma drown in it if I'm
Yeah.
not careful."
Yeah. And ultimately too, it's like I like I'm saving those those kind of projects, those like fever dream kind of projects for later, because it's like they might not make any sense, frankly. Like they might just not land at all. And so it's like, yeah, it's like it's a weird line to walk. And I definitely like check myself on that. Yeah, it's interesting. I do think like when I first got out of college, it was like everything's a 3D model. Like, how would I 3D model this thing, you know? Because that's what I was
Mhm.
doing all the time. And then it's like, oh, I start learning to program, and it's like everything's a system, and everything's, like something that can be reduced to simple rules. And so like, how can I make that? And so I'm there with you. It's like, if you're a doctor, you're gonna notice things about somebody's physical appearance or their well-being just from looking at them, um, if you're, yeah, it just depends on who you are, and like what you focus on. So I think that's really cool. Part about learning anything is just it changes your context. I always feel like, like people who learn a lot of different languages can like they like get to view history and culture in like so many interesting ways, and I think that's like a really cool thing. But yeah, maybe I'll
Mhm.
probably never have the time or never be serious enough about the languages to dig in, but that would be really cool. Maybe in a
I was
different
about to ask if you know
way.
any other languages.
I did like 100 days of like Spanish on Duolingo, so
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty bad at the language stuff, but yeah.
I mean, I think Duolingo's there for the it's a game. I don't think it's a language
Yeah,
learning app. It's a game because my
I
friend,
agree with you.
he's been doing Japanese on Duolingo. I think he crossed like 500 days like the other month. And we went to this little spot, this little Japanese restaurant, and the lady back there was speaking Japanese. He said hi and hello, and then she started
Yeah,
talking. He was just
yeah.
like, "Ah," and I'm like, "This man's been 500 days streak. That little owl is like on fire, and it's like, yeah, you're killing it."
Right.
It's like, but we in the Japanese restaurant. He can't say nothing. Then what are we really
Yeah,
doing?
yeah. I agree with you 100%. I agree with you.
It's funny.
It'd be easier to like just go to Japan and just like, try, just
Yeah.
like work through it. But yeah.
Pour yourself into it. Do you ever get the dream, like you had a dream and you just woke up and you've got this idea and you try to write it all sleepily, like have like one eye open and you're trying to like write it down and then you get up later and then like it makes no sense.
Oh yeah, all the time, all the time. I literally have a pen and a piece of paper by my bed, and it has notes that are like exactly what you're describing. Yeah.
Like, what was I
Yeah.
on, bro? What was I
Yeah.
talking
It
about?
was such a good idea when I was like half there.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Cool, man. This has been amazing, man. Thank you so much for the conversation. It's been a joy getting to know more about who you are and what you do and how you do it. And man, ever since I started game dev, I quickly found your page on YouTube. I have been learning and growing and being inspired ever since. And it ever since I started this podcast, I knew that like I would want you to eventually be a guest, and I'm honored and entirely grateful that you decided to do this today. And I wish you nothing but the best of luck and success with all of your projects, man.
Hey, thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciated this. I learned so much just talking to you. Um, I love your work, man, and I'm excited
Thank you.
to see more episodes of the podcast. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. So thanks for having me. It was my
Absolutely.
pleasure.
Yeah, man. We got a musician next week, and then
Ooh,
we're off for Christmas Eve, and then New Year's Eve we're off. And then we're back at it with some more painters, and then got a fantasy author coming in a little bit too. So
awesome.
that should be cool. Um, so a closing tradition we have here is the vertex stands as a point of connection. That's like the definition. It's why we started it. And I would like for you to attempt to connect with any person, place, thing, idea, company out there. And my hope is that like as the channel grows and the community grows, that we can like make these connections a lot easier. And whether it's like a dream client or like a long lost friend, this is just like your opportunity to reach out and connect with someone in the world.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Um, I gotta say, it's got to be the musician I named earlier, to Wikipedia. It would be amazing to work with them on like a soundtrack for a game. I know
Mm,
they've done like a little bit of OST work, and so that would be kind of a dream connection. But yeah, yeah. Thanks for the
man,
opportunity.
absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, you just never know. I live in Atlanta, and
Yeah,
there, here, it's like everybody knows everybody, like
yeah,
everybody.
yeah,
You look up and your friend, the mayor, is her auntie or something, and you're like, what? Or
yeah,
like
yeah,
you got this person over here. It's like, oh, that's what's the name? We went to high school together, and so I'm hoping like if I can just have that, but just on a grander scale, I think that would be so cool to be like, oh yeah, Wikipedia, yeah. Such and such, they're best friends with somebody we interviewed last week. I got you, or something like that. I think
yeah,
that would be so cool to be able
yeah.
to pull that.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah, man. And now that you've had the conversation, you kind of understand like the kind of places we go to. Who would you like to see on the podcast in the future? Are there any people that you would enjoy watching?
Mm, it's a good question. It'd be cool to see an interview from like Toby Fox or someone like that. Like he doesn't do a ton of interviews, but um, you know, there's probably a million people that asked him. But I think that would be really cool to see like a bit more about his background, a bit more about his process. Yeah, that would just be someone I would definitely tune in for. So
Yeah, he's crazy. He's kind of crazy. Like
yeah,
the like
i-
his music is
yeah, insanely good. Yeah, yeah, I think
yeah.
he's great. Yeah, huge inspo.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely. Well, cool, man. That's all we got. Do you have any other questions or comments before we wrap up here?
no, I think I'm all good.
Cool, man. Well, thank you so much once again, and yeah, good luck with everything you got going on. I'm super excited for when Cavern hits. I'm gonna put all of your links in the chat here. Um, man, it's everybody check out Bunny Hill, check out AirStar, Wishlist Cavern. They're all just it's good stuff out here. Y'all don't want to miss out on no good stuff. Come on. Come on now. Don't do
Thanks,
yourself a
man.
disservice. Absolutely. Well, cool. Well, we are going to wrap up here. I'm gonna find somebody to rate. So I'll catch you on the next one.
All right. Good luck.
All
Thank
right,
you.
man. Absolutely.
Take care.
Thank you so much for watching the episode. One of my favorite things about doing this podcast is hearing about when someone resonates with something we said. It's truly the reason I continue to make these happen. Comment down below what stuck with you, and we can continue the discussion further. Also consider liking and subscribing. It helps me bring in more amazing creatives and helps me make this show better for you all every episode. Catch y'all next week.